40 a.m., Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
I don't think I've had any terrible jobs. What about you? What?
I was a thistle picker on the pea line at a local cannery.
A thistle, say that 5 times fast. A thistle picker on the pea line? So let's just start there.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Brey with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. It's Tuesday, 10-4.
10-4.
10-4.
Yeah, 10-4.
Two of my oldest friends got married on October 4th, 2014. And the reason they chose that date is because he is a big Top Gun fan and he knew he would never forget their anniversary if it was 10-4.
Oh my goodness.
And it worked for me because every year, inevitably, I write 10-4 as the address. Like, oh, it's Ryan and Christine's anniversary.
That worked out well.
So happy anniversary, Ryan and Christine. Jane Matnair, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Again, this great weather continues. I think we got one more day of really nice fall, October, and then things going to get a little chilly.
Oh, is it?
I think Friday, Saturday, highs it might only be, lower 50 or upper 50s. It's coming. We got a couple weeks. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Well, as always, if you would like to join the conversation today at any point, shoot us a text, give us a call, 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. That is probably the easiest way to remember it, unless you were on, what was it? I was trying to type it out and it was like the actual typer, like the keyboard,
the letters
instead of the number pad. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I actually don't know what party is if I'm on a keyboard. And so then I just typed out the number because I think I was trying to tweet it out the other day. But hello, Waukesha, Richland Center, Amory, Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, Wausau,
Madison tonight.
Mm-hmm. Good show today. I'm very excited about this show. We have Lynn Dixon Speller, who is the Dean of Academics and the founder of Odessa School of Fashion.
So cool.
The only designated fashion college in the entire Midwest, and it's in Milwaukee.
Isn't that exciting?
It's so cool. So she's going to be with us from 11:30 to 12. The last hour of the show, Representative Francesca Hong will be here to reflect on her first term in the legislature. I'm sure talk about things that she's gotten done, things that she did not get done, talking about different campaigning that she's doing despite being in a very safe district and what she's doing for other candidates. And I'm sure she will also have thoughts on the special session that is happening today. Literally, it could be happening right now. I don't know exactly when it's supposed to start, but today is the special session Governor Evers called to allow the people of Wisconsin to decide for themselves if they would like to keep an 1849 law banning abortion in Wisconsin or keep it. So we've talked about this before, special session, the legislature has to meet, but they can, and they have, and they usually do gavel in and gavel out and don't discuss the topic at hand at all.
Nothing.
But the topic at hand is basically allowing Wisconsin voters to have a direct referendum that is actually binding versus just advisory right, on whether or not we would like to keep this 1849 law banning abortion. And the expectation is that they're going to do what they always do, which is gavel in and gavel out. I know there's a rally at the Capitol starting at 11:30, so people are probably starting to get there. And so we'll find out. We'll find out probably by the end of this show when Representative Hong is with us. It might already be over for all we know.
Do they all have to actually show up in person, or is it like one guy has to go there to gavel in and gavel out? or are they actually required to physically come back from their 9.5-month vacation and show up in Madison for once?
That's a good question.
It seems to me like there's one guy. You're the guy.
There at least has to be one guy.
Yeah.
But
You're the guy
the
who's gonna
leader, I would imagine. But because I don't know, because I mean, even in regular session, you sometimes have people who vote absent, like who aren't actually there, and they don't vote because they weren't in session. So I would imagine not. But if someone knows the answer to that, we are curious.
I would love to know that.
844-967-2789. Shoot us a text if you know the answer. If everyone has to be there, or if just some representatives have to be there.
You're it.
And but I'm not sure of that question. I know that there are some candidates running for assembly who are there, some women candidates who are in person, trying to hold things accountable, that they tweeted out. This is Renee for the assembly. She said, "We're here waiting for the special session to start." She had a picture of them in the Capitol, and the Dems are all here. So all the Democrats are there.
Yeah.
But no signs of the Republicans yet.
So again, that tells me that only one of them is going to show up. Because again, why inconvenience all of your colleagues on their months-long vacation? That's just so selfish.
I remember it will be interesting to see at the end of the year how much per diem they end up requesting. I remember that was a story in 2020, well, the last election year that we had, obviously, and there was insight, or the numbers came out as far as how much per diem everyone on both sides had taken, despite how little work had actually gotten done. So it'll be interesting to see what that number looks like. But speaking of the abortion debate, I was just going about my day.
Yesterday?
Yesterday, just going about my day.
Having a Monday
on social media. And I see a post. I don't even know how I saw it, because I do not follow Cops Frozen Custard on social media.
Yeah,
I don't know if I follow. I don't even know if I follow Culver's on social media. I do follow Quick Trip, because the young woman who runs the social media account for Quick Trip is very good at her job. She is very good at her job. So they have some entertaining content that they post. But someone must have reposted this, and I'm sure I'm not the only radio show that's going to talk about it today, because it's topical. But Cops Frozen Custard, local Southeast Wisconsin burger and custard place. Wisconsin loves their custard.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Michael's in Madison, which I think is now closed, or at least the one on Monroe Street is now closed, which is a real bummer, because I grew up going to that place, and there's lots of nostalgia for me. But Cops Custard, they posted this yesterday, and it was an apology letter. So I'm just going to read it. To our loyal customers, here at Cops Frozen Custard, we have prided ourselves in being a community staple for the last 72 years. Our daily goal is to be a place where all customers can come to enjoy a treat or a burger and forget about the world for even just a moment. We understand that with our October 2022 flavor forecast brochure, we have severely missed that goal. Dun, dun, dun. It continues. Linking, quote, National Pro-Life Cupcake Day, end quote, with our long-running flavor, Hey Cupcake, was an oversight on our part and an honest mistake. It was never our intention to get political and appear as though we have taken a side in this ongoing debate. We have removed this flavor from our flavor forecast for that day and have revised our list and website as well. Going forward, we strive to be more diligent in reviewing our flavor lists and any flavors we may link to a national holiday. We are sincerely sorry to all of our customers, loyal and new, whom we've offended with our attempt to link a national day with our flavor of the day offerings. We have always tried our best to keep politics and our staff's personal views out of the business and just focus on serving great food. It is still our number one priority as a business to welcome everyone who walks through our doors.
Really? This is where we are now.
First of all, what the hell is National Pro-Life Cupcake Day?
And was it just invented this year?
So, of course, this is a show that likes a good random kitschy national holiday, right? Like we do
embrace
this.
that.
We do this all the time. It is National Pluto Reclassification Day. Let's get a planetarium director on here. Like,
yes,
we love that low hanging fruit. So I get it. I get when you are putting daily flavors out, having a link to something and having some rhyme or reason tied to why you chose that flavor. I get it. That's how we do topics here sometimes.
Sure.
I just didn't know this was a day. So National Pro-Life Cupcake Day is October 9th, and it encourages open dialogue and exchange of cupcakes.
Open dialogue and exchange of
and
cupcakes?
an exchange of cupcakes. So the day also raises awareness about the issue of abortion. Cupcakes are a sweet way to get a conversation started on a difficult subject.
Hi, let's talk about something really, really uncomfortable. Have this red velvet cupcake.
So, I am a very pro-choice person. I don't think that it comes as a surprise to anyone who knows anything about me and has heard me talk about literally any subject, that I am very concerned about the state of our 1849 ban. I am concerned on the state of our country and the direction that we're marching towards when it comes to women's health. And this is the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen.
Well,
like I had no idea who is such a loyal customer that they are constantly checking and then offended by that. And if they were, just take it off. They got so much more publicity by making this statement and issuing this apology that now everyone in the comment section is all riled up over.
Yep.
And if let's just take it off. That was an oversight. Let's just forget it happened. We'll apologize to the people who complained and move on. And now, they're probably going to have even more defense of are they political? Are they not political? There was comments of like, oh, I thought I smelled a conservative, like, man. And there's people like, oh, they shouldn't have to apologize. This is like cancel culture. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, this is so dumb. It's dumb that it was a dumb oversight. It was a dumb decision to issue an apology that has brought them even more attention. And if this changes your mind one way or another on where you get your custard from, because there are options. You have options. This is how much we love custard in this state. You have options when it comes to independently owned, non-chain places to get your custard from. Does this change your mind? We would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. Does anything about this situation change whether or not you will head over to Cops anytime soon? For me, not so much. Not that I go there all the time anyways, because it's a little far, but I just think this was very dumb. Tell me I'm wrong. 844-967-2789. Going to break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Mental health challenges impact us all in some way. Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services is working hard to meet these challenges, ushering a new model of mental health care, redesigned with you in mind. This community-based system meets people where they're at, with culturally competent services, better access, and no wrong doors to begin the journey. Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services, here for you, close to home. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health emergency, contact 414-257-7222.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote, get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Join the WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw team when we broadcast live from the Waukesha Farmers Market, beginning Saturday, June 4th and lasting all summer long. Former Waukesha Alderman Don Brown hosts This Week in Waukesha 8 to 9 a.m. Then former U.S. Attorney James Santel launches his new Saturday morning show from 9 to 11. Raised in the Shaw with host Joel Clayfish rounds out the Saturday morning lineup 11 to noon. Come to the Waukesha Farmers Market for the only radio program broadcasting live from the Shaw.
Forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with a high of 70. Southwest winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy tonight, lows around 45. 70 tomorrow, cloudy skies. Temps below average Thursday and Friday, with highs from the upper 40s to the low 60s. Chance for scattered showers Thursday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 63 degrees.
Welcome back to Asco's Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Here comes the ice cream man. So we were talking before the break about this National Pro-Life Cupcake Day that Cops Custard stepped in it a little bit by linking October 9th to their flavor Hate Cupcake, which probably is good. It's probably a delicious flavor.
I'm sure it is.
But I think the whole thing is dumb. I think they should have they're going to get even more backlash and in more trouble now that they issued that apology and posted it across their social media rather than just taking it down and apologizing to whoever called with concern. But this is not the first time that a custard place stepped in it a little bit.
Custard controversy.
Custard controversy. Maybe that's today's
theme.
Well, maybe that's what we'll name the podcast today as custard controversy.
Love it.
But I remember, so in 2020, my friend Josh Burstein and I, who may come on this show because I think he's coming here soon. He's another political comedian who spent a lot of time in Wisconsin working on different campaigns. I think he's coming back for October to work on more campaigns.
Exciting.
But he and I, back in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, when it became very obvious that Milwaukee was not going to host the DNC as was expected, he and I made a really great, I still stand by, I think the video was great, of showing off Milwaukee. And we went all over the city, and it was with his connections of people who work at the DNC. He made it in the hopes that they could post it, and there would still be some, showing Milwaukee in a great light of this city that everyone missed out on. And one of the locations that we shot at was Leon's.
Very famous.
He and I did not, neither, since I am not from Milwaukee, he is also not from Milwaukee. He went to school in Madison. I'm from Madison. We knew Leon's was famous. We went and got custard there. We got some B-roll of us eating custard there. And fast forward to giving the video to the DNC, and they reviewed it and asked us to take that part out. Because turns out in 2016, Leon's frozen custard got in a little trouble because they had an English-only policy.
Was that for workers?
For workers. Yes. The owner, I think his name was Ron Schneider, he went to Fox 6 and he said his employees can only speak English on the job. And that became a controversy, largely because I guess where Leon's is a predominantly Latino area now of where in Milwaukee.
On the south side.
On the south side. And I think a lot of the people who worked at Leon's spoke Spanish. And so when this basically came to light when a Spanish-speaking customer probably saw a Latino presenting person and ordered in Spanish, and the employee whispered back to that person, "I can't respond to you in Spanish." And then the person behind him also ordered, like the next person ordered in Spanish, and they said the same thing to him. So it became an issue. And I looked this back up because I knew about it when the DNC said we can't feature Leon's for the exact reason of what should have happened at Cops, of someone reading it. It's like, someone's going to be upset if we put this flavor on the day on there. Just let's get ahead of this and not have it. So that's what happened when they're like, someone's going to be upset with us if we feature Leon's, knowing that this had happened at that point 4 years prior. Now this is 6 years. Did you cover this at all when you in any of your radio jobs?
I don't remember that specifically. Actually, I don't. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. That just means that I'm not very good at remembering some things.
And it's just,
but it doesn't stand out to me that it was that big.
That was that big of a deal.
That big of a thing.
I mean, I'm looking at the Fox 6 article that covered it, and I'm just interested to see, 6 years later.
Is that even a blip?
Is that still a thing? If I'd be interested to go to Leon's now that obviously I'm not going to Cops anymore.
Oh, jeez. By the way, John from the Falls checked in on the text line at 844-967-2789. The decision on whether or not I will go to Cops depends on the flavor that day. Cupcake flavored custard has no appeal for me. If they actually substitute something that tastes good, more lemon raspberry shortbread, please. Well, there you go.
That sounds really good.
That does sound really good.
Yes, that is the right rationale on why you should or should not. Which custard place you go to that day if you're someone who's going daily.
I like the flavor. And who, by the way, spent all that time looking for that? We talked about this yesterday with someone having to go through 18,000 tweets from Mandela Barnes looking for dirt. So someone is going through the flavors of the day looking for controversy. Really? Is that your job?
I mean, I guess to a certain extent, potentially, if there's people who, that's their local place and they go a fair amount and they print out, because they had a whole name for it. It's like the monthly flavor brochure.
Right, they do it on a monthly basis.
And so if they print it and post it, and I would say that if I'm someone who looks to see what the flavor is, that seems a little bit more reasonable than going through 18,000 tweets. Because some people do that and don't get paid for it.
True.
Right? Like these stories happen all the time when it comes to Twitter of Kevin Hart and things he tweeted 10 years ago. And then he wasn't allowed to host the Oscars because of things he had tweeted. And, there are people who have the time to go through and find that thing you said that will get you in trouble from X amount of years ago, whether it's bullying. I think Chrissy Teigen, rightfully so. I mean, she got in trouble because she was awful to, I don't even know who the woman was. But so this is a little bit more reasonable as far as scanning the flavors, which they're in October, there's only going to be 31, and being like, that one, what is this one?
In the next break, I want to find out the origin year of National Pro-Life Cupcake Day.
I'm sure we could find it.
Oh, I'm sure we will, because I have a feeling this is a really, 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 really recent holiday.
Cupcakes for Life founded the day as a way to discuss pro-life awareness.
On what year?
I don't know. We got to go to a break.
Yep.
And we're not going to be able to do it right when we come back because we have a guest when we come back. So stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school system, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slacker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci for Busted Pencils Radio. Each week they take on the challenges and issues facing our schools, teachers, and communities. Busted Pencils, Tuesdays at 7, right here on 92.7.
The radio show your mother warned you about.
Actual tyranny of a dictator. Dictator's going to dictate Putin. And what did Trump do? Trump kneeled to the man. Embarrassing Republicans. And you're still with the guy? This is your front runner in 2024? You've been smoking some of Mike Lindell's crack. What are you thinking?
They're the GCCCP. We are the devil's advocates.
Live weekday afternoon.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. There is a new rule from the Federal Aviation Administration. Airlines will be required to give flight attendants at least 10 hours off duty between shifts. one more hour than what is currently allowed. Acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan made the announcement.
I worked alongside them, travel with them, and I can tell you firsthand that well-rested crew members are important to safety.
The Association of Flight Attendants has fought for years for a longer break between shifts. American John Clauser is one of 3 scientists who jointly won this year's Nobel Prize in Physics for their work on quantum information science.
The results are now quite important for quantum encryption in particular, for sending secure
Lynn.
Communications.
The prize is for a 1970.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Experiment. I'm Ed Donahue.
Okay.
There we go.
I didn't want to accidentally talk on the radio.
No, everyone who's listening to the live stream on Facebook can hear us right now, but the radio can't hear us. But welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I am too.
So we will come back in about a minute and a half, and then we'll have until 11:48, and then we'll break for 2 minutes, and then I'll bring you back after the break. But yeah, we're just going to talk about your background, how you started this, why Wisconsin, how is it going, and I'm sure we'll go in a lot of different ways, but I'm so excited. And I have a funny joke from my mother to start it off with as far as fashion, her thoughts about fashion in Wisconsin.
Okay. Don't make me laugh. It's bad.
But yeah, so when Jane, the producer, you've already met Jane, you emailed with her, she'll count down 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, as we go into break. If she starts going like this, we got to wrap it up, just because we have hard-coded breaks. And so if we don't wrap up the conversation, we'll just get cut off.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so we're good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this.
Your headlines. During the first day of jury selection in Waukesha County, Darrell Brooks Jr. continually interrupted proceedings. Brooks Jr. is representing himself after withdrawing a plea of insanity last month and then being allowed to waive his right to an attorney based on 4 different psychological evaluations, stating he wants to represent himself as, quote, a sovereign citizen. Brooks Jr. is facing 77 charges, including 6 homicide charges surrounding the Waukesha Christmas parade last year. Brooks Jr. interrupted the jury selection numerous times Monday and was removed twice to an adjacent courtroom where he could appear by video, but the camera was muted a majority of the time. Waukesha County Circuit Court Judge Jennifer Darrow said if Brooks Jr. continues to be disruptive, she could appoint an attorney to the case. By the end of the day, only 41 potential jurors had been interviewed. The selection will now continue into Thursday, so all 315 potential jurors can be interviewed. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. So back in the beginning of COVID, so I was at my parents' house in Wisconsin Rapids. This was before Wisconsin had seen the first spike in cases, but it was spiking in different cities. And my mother was expressing concern. She said, you know, COVID's going to come here last, just like all the fashion trends. Wisconsin's always last to get the fashion trends, and so we're going to be the last one to get this spike in cases too. But that is not always the case, because Wisconsin now has the first designated fashion college in the entire Midwest, which is located in Milwaukee. And our guest for this half hour is Lynn Dixon Speller, who is the Dean of Academics at Odessa School of Fashion, and she is also the founder of Odessa School of Fashion. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, true or false, Wisconsin's the last to get the fashion trends?
You know, it's interesting. Wisconsin is a heavy producer of clothing and soft goods. And so we may be the last to get the trends, but we're the first to put out the goods.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, so I'm so excited to learn more about the school in general, but you have quite the resume. You are an internationally acclaimed and award-winning apparel designer. You've had museum credits at the Smithsonian, and you're not from Wisconsin, correct? So you've been kind of all over the place. So tell me more about how you got here.
Trailing spouse. You know the term trailing spouse. I followed my husband for a position he had secured and got here. I planned to raise my kids and be a housewife. And of course, the fashion industry sucked me back in, and it became very clear that there was a fashion school here, Mount Mary University. I began to teach there when I first arrived. And so from there, I went to MATC, I taught there. I taught at Art Institute of Wisconsin, where I became the chair of the fashion department, and then later became the president of the entire college. And the school then closed. And once it closed, we had done such good work building a strong fashion program, both in marketing and design, that my faculty and I decided we can't let this go. So we pursued, developing our own college, and it took about 5 years.
What does that even take to start a college, let alone a fashion college, but just to take it on, and the accreditation process, the funding, the buildings, the staff? Like, what does that actually take?
It's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. We had no idea what it took. The fortunate thing was that as I was running the Art Institute of Wisconsin, it was breaking down. So I was allowed in rooms on a collegiate level that I'd never been allowed in before. So I was learning about accreditation and program approval and compliance and regulation and all that sort of thing, financial aid. And these were things I had never touched before. And so as I was responsible for breaking that school down, I began to realize it's building it up backwards. And I decided to take my job very seriously and learn this. And I had the support of the faculty and the staff of that institution backing me. And we all, in a team type of effort, began to decide, what's our website? What's the name of the school? What are our programs? How do we want the curriculum to look? And one step after the other, we built it. And it's fortunate that so far we've not had any real missteps. Nothing was done out of order. We learned it as we did it. No one does this. So there was no one to ask, how do you do it? So we just got in there and figured it out. And so far, so good. It's going pretty well.
Because it opened in January. So you're in your first freshman class is the school right now, correct?
Exactly. Except that we also had students that had attended previous institutions that were not allowed to finish. So we actually have juniors and seniors as well. It's a very diverse group, but we have every level thus far.
So how does a fashion school, or a school that is specifically for fashion, what's different about it? What is the curriculum? Like, what does that look differently than if I was at UWM?
Well, if you were at UWM, the first thing would happen is you'd come in as a freshman and you start in liberal arts courses to kind of find yourself and determine what you want to do, where you want to be. What at EDESA, you come in and you're studying fashion day one because it's all we offer. And secondly, our gen eds are focused towards fashion as well. Your science is anatomy, which I feel anybody in the fashion world should study. Your psychology is psychology of dress. Your economics is textile industry economics. Your sociology is ethnic influences on American fashion. Your math is retail math and math for designers. All of our courses, even the writing courses, are geared towards fashion, blogging, journalism, things of that nature that, it require you to know fashion, but it makes our students feel more comfortable. You know how a student goes, why do I have to take this? Well, now they don't say that because everything has to do with fashion. So it makes us very mono-focused.
Absolutely. And so that's fascinating because I would think that my assumption would be like, oh, it's design and it's sewing and it's the application, but it's so right as far as like having to take anatomy and understand the body because you're making things for bodies. And so that makes so much sense to me. And so how many students do you have right now?
Right now we have about 14. We have about 4 coming in the fall so far. We have not even begun to recruit, really. And this has all been word of mouth that we have the group that we have. So most fashion programs get about 20 students a year. So we're on target with our enrollment numbers.
And are they mostly Wisconsin kids? Are they mostly kids from the Midwest? Or because if this is the only, does it surprise you that there's not anything in Chicago, that this would be the first fashion institute in the region?
In Chicago, there are fashion programs attached to other schools.
Okay.
But there were 3 programs that were that met their demise when the Art Institutes closed. So they had 3 programs there as well. So when this started, Chicago had 5 opportunities for students to go to school there to study fashion, and now there are 2. So that's a big void in the Chicago area as well, and we're hoping to tap into that student body as well. It's interesting that do we have mostly Midwestern students? Yes, but I just got a student that has already secured a degree at FIT in illustration, who has now moved to Milwaukee and now decided that he wants to study design as well. And so that was a major validation to our programs because you're coming from one of the best schools in the world and have already, managed to go through that program. And now you've chosen ours. I can't believe it. We also have now 2 students that are coming internationally.
Oh, wow.
So we're trying to figure that out because from Africa. So it has become a worldwide presence. And I think that when we went to New York and we showed there, that we got our name out on the worldwide stage. So people are starting to take notice.
Well, because I read that. And so talk more about the fact that the school started in January and then you were already at New York Fashion Week by September, which is incredible.
Thank God for those juniors and seniors that we had so many show, because the sewing classes just started this summer. So we were invited, and fortunately we didn't have to turn it down because we had students that were at the level that could show. And you want to always take your best and your brightest. And fortunately, we were able to, we had 3 students that met that need, and we went there. We had a blast. I mean, it was everything. And we've been invited to be number 1, the educational partner to New York Fashion Week Black, and secondly, to show every year. So now if you come to Edessa School of Fashion, I won't say you will, I will say you can potentially show in New York. It's a faculty selection, and that determines who goes. So it's not fair, but
it is subjective.
But that's where we are able to make that determination, because we have to choose by who can not only show, but who has the strength of character to go and do a good job while we're there. Because it's very, very high pressure. And I will say, now that we've been once and know what to expect, we will continue to go because it's a real world experience for a student that you can't get anywhere else. You are dressing models in a dressing room full of people, hair and makeup flying everywhere. And come on, your cue is now. And schlepping suitcases and luggage full of garments all over from the airport to the Airbnb, to the venue, back to the Airbnb, back to the venue. I mean, it was real world experience, and they loved it. And they did an amazing job.
Oh, we're talking to Lynn Dixon Speller, who is the academic dean and founder of Edessa School of Fashion, the first designated fashion college in the Midwest, which is so cool. And so because you named the school after your grandmother, correct?
Yes. Fortunately, she had a cool name.
Yeah.
It's actually the name of a city in Greece. The city of waterfalls is called Edessa. And I'm not sure, I'm going to assume she was named after that city. But we love the name because it's that nurturing aspect of grandmother showed me how to sew. Now my grandmother will show you how to sew. And, I don't want to neglect the marketing department, which is our business side. And, Edessa, it envelops all of these things all together, where you come to our school, whatever you want to do in fashion, you can do. But grandmother Edessa is the one showing you how to do it.
Oh, I love that. Well, because I think that's something for those of us who are not very fashionable, which I would put myself in that category. I think that's a blindness to, or like we're blind to how many different, it's not just the designers. No. Like going to work in fashion doesn't mean, oh, I want to have my own label and my own line. There's the types of jobs that this creates or you can go into is everything from marketing, finance, shoppers. Like what is all that, like what what does it span as far as the types of jobs that your graduates can then go do?
I had an opportunity to look into the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, and people tend to, it's a book that people with disability and vocational rehabilitation and determinations are made about occupational titles to determine if people can receive benefits or whatever. So it's a federal book. And I looked into it, and there are at least 200 job titles under the title, the heading of fashion.
Oh, wow.
The States. And it's only referring to the United States.
That is, because we talk a lot about in Wisconsin and in Milwaukee of attracting people to move here, right? And the different policies or the different industries, and how can we attract people to stay here, move back here. And I love the ambition of, despite what my mom said, having Wisconsin and Milwaukee cut out that corner of the fashion industry and then have that be a destination beyond FIT or the different coastal programs and schools that we think of, but actually cut out a corner on the Gold Coast, or the Third Coast, I should say,
right.
of people, this being a destination. Is that the big vision? Is it becomes that much of a competitive school that this becomes the place to go?
It was an accidental accomplishment. When we started EDESA, we weren't thinking about where it was. We weren't thinking about how it sat in the United States. But the accidental accomplishment was that the two coasts have all the designated fashion schools, and maybe Atlanta, they're in South Carolina, again, a coast, but there was nothing here that was designated. It just happened. It was accidental, and it worked out great.
That's so, yeah, I love it. I'm so excited. And so is there also a Milwaukee Fashion Week that I heard about?
So there has been a Milwaukee Fashion Week. It's in hiatus right now. Some people are looking at the idea of resurrecting it. So I'm assuming it will be back, and it may be back soon.
Oh, that's exciting. Again, not necessarily a huge fashionista over here, but I appreciate the art, and I appreciate the intention and the creativity that goes into it. So we're going to go to a break really quickly, but when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the ethnic influences on American fashion, because I know that is something that you're passionate about and something that I feel like comes up in conversation on social media every once in a while. So our guest this half hour is Lynn Dixon Speller. We'll be right back.
WAUK and the Shaw are the new kids on the radio block. And that block happens to be on Wisconsin Ave, Waukesha. Now is a great time to advertise locally with 540 AM and the Shaw 101 FM, while the ads are inexpensive and the audience is rapidly growing. Sponsorships available for This Week in Waukesha, Raised in the Shaw, or live local music on the weekends. Spring packages starting at just $495 a month. Get started today by emailing info@waukradio.com.
The real estate market in Dane County and surrounding areas has been a bit of a hot mess this year. Listings are being picked off above asking prices and without the home inspection contingencies. I'm Todd Osborne, owner of Orion Inspections, and even if I weren't a home inspector, I'd still cringe a little if any of my friends or family tried to buy a home without an inspection. Let's take a good hard look at that house before you sign. Want to know more? I'm here to help. OrionInspections.com. That's Orion, like the constellation, inspections.com.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205 for 1 hour each day. Come see the train chimp, The Matt McNeil Show with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
Forecast on the Shaw. High of 70 this afternoon under partly cloudy skies. Winds out of the southwest 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight. Lows level off around 45. Highs around 70. Tomorrow cloudy. Cooler Thursday and Friday with highs from the upper 40s to the low 60s. Chance for scattered rain showers Thursday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 63 degrees.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Our guest this half hour is Lynn Dixon Speller, who's the academic dean and founder of Edessa School of Fashion. And one of the, I think it was WPR, had done a story on you and the success of the school so far. And it talked about creating an entire curriculum about ethnic influences on American fashion. And I feel like, at least on the corners of social media that I spend time on, this pops up every once in a while where some white influencer or Kardashian or Hailey Bieber, or I think Hailey Bieber right now is the one who's under the gun for what she's calling like brownie lips or something, where she's just outlining her, like using brown eyeliner as lip liner and calling it something that it's not, when Latina and Black women have been doing that for a very long time. And this happens forever. And hoop earrings and these things that somehow, because a famous white woman usually starts doing a trend and then doesn't give credit to the communities that have been doing that for decades or came up with it. I mean, you also hear this with food. Like most of the food that we love, no matter the culture, was like peasant food at some point, right? And so talk more about what that means and the kind of the curriculum that you've been able to create around studying that.
Well, if you are Black or brown, you understand the need for inclusion, probably more so than anyone else. And because of that, 35 years ago, I was an assistant professor at the University of Delaware, and a professor was going on sabbatical and asked me to teach her course in history of costume. And I had taken history of costume as a graduate student, and I was ready to teach the class. It was one of my favorite subjects. But as I was teaching the class, and I had 100% non-students of color, they were all white students, and we were studying France and Paris and England and Spain and Italy, I began to realize the history of costume was only in Western Europe. And it wasn't discussing Japan or Africa or South America, or United States. I mean, it didn't discuss any of those things. And I began to get a bee in my bonnet and realize, we're not included in this discussion. And it's another example of how history has eliminated our progress, our contributions. So I wrote a grant to the Center of Teaching Effectiveness, and it was funded to develop a course called Ethnic Influences in American Fashion. And I consulted with a woman named Lois Alexander, who is the woman, she wrote the book, Blacks in the History of Fashion. She also was the founder of the Black Fashion Museum, which is only 3 hours away from where I lived at the time. So we began to work together to try to expose more students in fashion in how other people of color, had contributed to the fashion industry as makers, designers, just as cultural influencers. So as I did that, I wrote the grant and wrote the course. The course became a multicultural course at the University of Delaware, where students were required to study a culture other than their own in order to be considered fully educated. And that was back in the 80s. So when, it was way ahead of its time. And so when I did that, I had pre-law students, nursing students, I had English students in the class, not just fashion students, because they were trying to fulfill their multicultural requirements. I've taken that course everywhere I've taught, and it has not been accepted everywhere I've taught. And so when we developed Edessa, we could accept it for ourselves, and it became a bigger part of the curriculum because we began to realize the need for ethnic influences to be infused in all of the coursework. And it makes all of our students of color feel very comfortable and included and celebrated for no other reason than the fact that they have a part of this history too.
That's fascinating. And so what was the pushback? Would just be it's not necessary at some of the other schools that you've taught at?
One school had a strong prescribed curriculum that didn't have room for any variance. Another school was, said, and I won't call the names of the schools.
Of course.
We don't have time for that. We don't have room for that. We already know what we're doing. And, it's interesting because it's one of the things that has drawn the majority of my students to our school. And again, it was a happy accident. It's something I believe strongly in and felt, and my team felt strongly about putting these things together. And the students are celebrating it. And so I will say that my student body at this point is probably 80% of color and LGBTQ, different ethnicities, races, religions. I mean, for such a small student body, everybody represents somebody in the student body, and they all get along. They love each other. They work together. We refer to them as our founding students.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be about another year, and then they won't be founding students anymore. But we do have, when you see these universities, and they have this big oil painting of the founding fathers and the founding students. These students will be in our oil painting. It will be abstract, but it'll be our oil painting.
I love that. So how often what are some of the stories when they take that course that they're surprised by that they didn't know? Like, what are some facts that we would, the average person doesn't know? Oh, that's where that came from.
Well, they didn't know that, now you're making me draw a blank.
Sorry.
You know that Elizabeth Keckley designed that there was a garment in the Smithsonian designed by a Black woman for the Smithsonian's presidential collection for inaugurations. They didn't know a Black woman had a garment in there. They didn't know that Ann Lowe did Jacqueline Kennedy's wedding dress because it was a well-kept secret. She wasn't Ole Cassini, so they didn't talk about the fact that she had done the entire bridal party of that very historic wedding. There are many Blacks in the history of fashion that are not discussed because there's no room for them in the discussion. However, they do have their place in history, and it's starting to be exposed now. We're starting to talk about it.
I love that. So in the 2 minutes that we have left, if anyone listening wants to apply to ADESA, when are applications due?
Well, we take them probably 2 months before the next session begins, which that would be spring. So you'd have until about late mid-November, and you go to our website, edesa.fashion, and there's a button that says apply.
I love it. So we'll link that to our blog post for today on asgoeswisconsin.com. Absolutely, because I love this. I love the attention it can bring to the Midwest and the outlet for creativity. And I think as we talk about the not problem with schools, but as we're trying to have kids go to more school and do things that they, like you said, actually is applicable to the career that they want, this is such the epitome of that. And so thank you for starting it. I'm so excited to see it grow and the success that you'll continue to have. And thank you for spending time with us today.
You are delightful. Thank you so much.
All right. Lynn Dixon Speller is the academic dean and founder of ADESA School of Fashion. Please check it out. It is so cool. Thank you so much. And we're going to take a break for the news, and we'll come back in a minute.
Thank you.
Who doesn't love laser tag? iCombat gives you that and so much more. It's a real-life video game experience. iCombat's perfect for birthday parties, special events, corporate team building, or just blasting away at your friends. iCombat at 1023 Spring City Drive off Sunset. For more info, go to iCombatWaukesha.com. iCombat is a proud sponsor of the Black Shirt Football radio broadcast. Gear up, squad up, prepare for iCombat laser tag.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Clayfish, and I've got a new show on WAUK 540 AM 101 FM The Shaw. It's called Raised in the Shaw with Joel Clayfish. I was born and raised in Waukesha, and you wouldn't believe what a springboard that is for a crazy, exciting life. We'll talk provider lifestyle, hunting, fishing, and of course, cooking from field to table, because food's my favorite dish. We'll have local and national celebrity guests. Join us at 7 Thursdays for Raised in the Shaw. See you then.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W226DR Waukesha, always streaming at
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. For hundreds of thousands of people, many in Florida, today is another day without electricity. Hurricane Ian's destruction is the reason. Flooding is still a problem in many areas. The number of storm-related deaths has risen in recent days because of the dangers posed by cleaning up and as search and rescue crews comb through some of the hardest-hit areas of Florida. A lot of Loretta Lynn's life is in her music.
"'Cause you ain't woman enough to take my man."
Her family says the country music superstar died at her home in Tennessee. She was 90. Lynn wrote fearlessly about sex and love, cheating husbands, divorce, and birth control. In a 2010 interview with the AP, Loretta Lynn said,
"I don't think I inspired anybody. I think I hope I have, but I ain't no different than anybody."
Lynn's biggest hits came in the 60s and 70s, including Coal Miner's Daughter. Flight attendants will get more rest under a new FAA rule. The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
Airlines will be required to give attendants at least 10 hours off between shifts, one more than they get now.
One that is going to improve aviation safety.
Acting FAA Chief Billy Nolan says the change took way too long. Congress told the agency 4 years ago to boost the rest requirement. Flight Attendants Union President Sarah Nelson says the Trump administration tried to kill it, but crews will finally get the rest they deserve and need.
This feels really good.
Airlines have up to 90 days to comply. Sagar Magani at the White House.
Trading in shares of Twitter have been stopped. The stock spiked on reports Elon Musk would go ahead with his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter after months of legal battles. Ukraine is considering restarting Europe's largest nuclear power plant, which is occupied by Russian troops, to ensure its safety. This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKRadio.com.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Dana Perry.
What am I fearing? Why do I worry at all? 'Cause I can feel that.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Double Radio. Some of us, were meant to run for public office, and some of us were meant to run others out. That's the side I come from.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Clayfish, and I've got a new show on WAUK 540 AM 101 FM The Shaw. It's called Raised in the Shaw with Joel Clayfish. I was born and raised in Waukesha, and you wouldn't believe what a springboard that is for a crazy exciting life. We'll talk provider lifestyle, hunting, fishing, and of course, cooking from field to table, because food's my favorite dish. We'll have local and national celebrity guests. Join us at 7 Thursdays for Raised in the Shaw. See you then.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matner with your headlines. The Universal Free Lunch Program ended for schools across the nation in June. Local districts have concerns for students they see falling through the cracks. This school year marking the first in 2 years that parents and guardians need to apply for the free and reduced lunch program. Many aren't qualified because of their income. In Wausau, out of 1,000 applicants, only 421 qualified. School officials say this results in some students skipping out on lunch because they can't afford it. And health experts say this can impact learning and make students more vulnerable to illness because of a lack of nutrition. Wisconsin lawmakers introduced a bill that would have made healthy breakfasts and lunches available to all students across the state, but it failed to pass the GOP-controlled legislature. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Hour 2. Lynn was so cool.
She was fantastic. I so wish we could have kept her longer because I have so many questions I wanted to ask
you were so. I was waiting to see if you were going to chime in with anything.
It was such an. You guys were having such an interesting conversation, and of course, I think of silly things. But I wanted to ask her. Is it technically fashion if you take a naked person, stick them in a thong, take a clear piece of material and sew sleeves into it and throw it on this naked person? Is that fashion?
Of course you were talking about, was it Paris Fashion Week?
It was, yes.
It was Paris Fashion Week and it was Bella Hadid.
Yes. Oh, for pity's sake. You have lovely breasts. That's great. Put them away.
The boobage. The boobage continues. It's just upsetting, Jane.
Well, I find it upsetting because if this applies to all of us, people are going to be in for some really ugly surprises.
Well, you don't want to get on a stage and naked in a thong and have someone spray a dress onto you?
I think not this week.
I thought it was kind of cool.
I mean, that was cool. The spray on dress.
I mean, I have no idea what it was made out of.
But
it was truly, if you haven't seen this video, Google Bella Hadid Paris Fashion Week.
Spray on dress.
And she comes onto stage in just underwear, no bra. And she has, as far as what society has told us the perfect measurements are, she is probably taller than I am. She's 5'11", very thin, but still has boobs somehow. I never know how that works.
Truly.
As far as boobs being basically fat tissue. And so you can have zero body fat and yet still be like a C cup. Makes no sense.
Yeah. But there might be enhancements there anyway.
They look pretty real. This was not the topic I was going to talk about this segment at all.
But I would have had different bump music if I had known.
This was not what I was planning to talk about something much more boring than Bella Hadid's boobs.
Because I wanted to throw in that soundbite we have of, I think, a man snuck into the meeting.
Yes.
Like,
we gotta show these nipples.
Exactly. That's what the world needs, everyone.
Free the nipple.
Free the nipple.
All right. Well, what I was going to talk about and will talk about for this segment is something of a recurring theme that we talk about a fair amount on this program, which is shared revenue. Being that many of our municipalities, Milwaukee probably being the most talked about, but Milwaukee not being the only city that has been affected by a stagnant shared revenue program as far as how we all pay taxes. We all pay state taxes for now until, somehow they convince income taxes to be eliminated. But for now, we all pay state income taxes. And so that goes to the state. And traditionally there has been since there's been enough money that then goes back to the city from the state, as far as, because each city only has limited ability to raise their own revenue. They cannot do a sales tax. They basically only have property taxes and fees and things like that. What were you going to say?
That is imposed by the legislature.
And that is imposed by the legislature.
Yes.
And so shared revenue funding has been flat since 2012. and it's dropped by 18% since 2001. And so there is less money going back to the cities, while the state sits on a $5 billion surplus. So the state is not broke, but more and more cities are broke, which is the easiest way probably to talk about that. So yesterday, granted, yes, we are in election time, campaign time, and people are presenting proposals to indicate what their intentions would be. Were they reelected in the case of Tony Evers, or elected for the first time in the case of Tim Michels? And so our current governor, Tony Evers, announced a proposal yesterday for the state budget to increase shared revenue to local governments by $91 million, including $10 million specifically for police, fire, and emergency services. Sounds good, right?
This seems like
a thing that solves a problem.
Yes.
And this is his budget proposal. Next year, were he to be reelected, we would go through another budget process that he would have his proposal, the state legislature would have theirs. The state legislature they all have to come to agreement because the state legislature has to write their budget, and then the governor has to sign that budget.
Right.
And so there has to be some kind of compromise. And so this seems like, for a party that is constantly, their entire messaging for this election cycle is crime. You cannot turn on the TV or open a newspaper or open your, whatever you get your news these days, without the election rhetoric and messaging, either in a campaign or a headline or whatever, or an ad of how bad crime is and who's soft on crime and parole and cash bail. And this is so much of what we're hearing. And defund the police was a wildly unpopular idea coming out of 2020, when that started to gain momentum as far as even entering the lexicon of public discourse of what would defund the police actually look like. And a lot of people just didn't like it. And a lot of people who, even when you start to talk about it more, as far as how much budget, how much of a lot of big cities, including Milwaukee, like over half the budget goes towards police. Is this the best way we could be spending our money? So the slogan of defund the police, not very popular. And a lot of people, as crime rates started to go up, the gut reaction was, we can't just get rid of police. And so that was heard. Right. And I think a lot of politicians heard that this was not a popular thing to run on and stopped talking about it. And now, in the case of Governor Tony Evers, whether you like it or not, and I think there's a fair amount of defund the police constituents out there, or abolitionists who don't like this and are would be mad at Tony Evers for suggesting this, but he is listening, right? He is listening to the idea that this is defunding the police is not popular, and trying to solve that by increasing shared revenue so municipalities, aka local control, can have more budget to put to local services that they're on the hook for paying for. Because the state doesn't pay for your local police officers.
Right.
The city does. And yet, once again, this is just a political stunt, blah, blah. And both the Twitterverse is, well, this, what happened to defund the police? That was like, they was running on and blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, yeah, he backed away from it. And even the quote from Representative Mark Bourne, who is the Republican co-chairman of the legislature's budget writing committee, his quote coming out of it, "This is another disingenuous election year stunt to convince voters that law enforcement is a priority for Governor Evers." But how is it a stunt? If he's saying that this is what he's going to do, and if he actually gets reelected and does it, how is it actually a stunt? And it's just, how are we ever going to get out of this cycle of actually trying to get something done when politicians and elected officials respond to what constituents say they want, propose policy that reflects that, And then because it's something that you at one point as your party said that you wanted, just because the other guy on the other team proposed it, it's a political stunt. And I'm just curious. I don't know how many conservatives listen to this show. I hope plenty. I try to present things in a way that is thoughtful and rational
and open to conversation.
And open for conversation. So I would like to think that people who vote for Republicans, people who are center-right, people who identify as a conservative, sometimes listen to the show. I know on other shows, if CJ is out there, I know CJ calls into a lot of my other colleagues' show, and he is definitely conservative. And so if you are someone who, largely probably has no plan to vote for Tony Evers, regardless of this proposal, is there anything he could do that would make you go, well, that was good? Or is everything he does bad because he is a Democrat? Because I got to be honest, if Tim Michels were to be elected come November, and that was our new governor, there'd probably be a lot of things I wouldn't like, because that's, largely my overlap of the policies I think are good, overlap with Democrats, overlap with Tony Evers, and I don't see a lot of overlap with the things that Tim Michels has talked about. But one thing that he has said or indicated is talking about paid leave for parents when they first either have children or if they have parental, like they're needing to take care of their parents. But something that at some point or another, a lot of us need to be able to take time and still make a living to take care of a infant child or potentially a ailing parent.
And this is coming from
or spouse.
And this is coming from Tim Michels.
This is coming from Tim Michels. I mean, he said it. I think he said it in the debate because I think it's something that Michels Corporation does offer is some amount of paid leave. And different states are doing this more. I think in California, you get up to like 12 weeks now, like paid from the state. And, I was someone who's planning to have a baby next year, hopefully, knock on wood. A paid leave to spend time with my child that I'm trying to keep alive, that seems like a good way to keep people in the workforce, or, ideas on childcare. And so even though there would probably be a ton of things that Tim Michels would get behind and laws he would sign that I wouldn't like, I would have to say I would applaud him taking charge and in conjunction with the Republican state legislature, trying to pass some kind of paid leave for Wisconsin residents. And I would not immediately say, well, this is just a political stunt. I would say, all right, this is getting something done that I think is good. And so my question, if you are listening and would like to call us, 844-967-2789, or text us, is if you are someone who leans right, is a conservative, votes for Republicans, is there anything a Democratic leader could do that would make you go, at least, all right, that was good?
That was one good thing.
It was one good thing. He's trying to propose that we have more funding available for police, fire, and emergency services in the budget.
Not saying that you would vote for him.
Just that you would said, well, that's good. That I could get behind that. 844-967-2789. Would love to talk this out with you, or if you want to just shoot a text, because I'm fascinated if anything he does could not be seen as a, quote, political stunt. All right, we'll take a break and hopefully take your calls when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The greatest radio show ever could be your greatest advertising investment ever. Partner with the Devil's Advocates and activate our loyal, educated, and engaged audience today. In-show interviews and sponsored special events considered across Wisconsin. Affordable digital and terrestrial ads available in Chicago and Minneapolis, and directly on the Devil Radio app. Make a deal with the Devils and get the Devil's Advocates bump to your bottom line. Call or text 844-967-2789 today.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205. For 1 hour each day, come see the train chimp, The Matt McNeil Show with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
You've waited 12 years for this, but you just didn't know what the flavor was going to be. Nothing has tasted quite right up until now. Sometimes it tasted dumb, crazy, or even seditious, but now it tastes just right. Introducing Mandela Mash, a legit lager. This beer won't embarrass you in public. It comes in an aluminum can, not a tinfoil hat, and it was made in America, not Russia.
One
With a clean
text.
finish,
All
the
right,
taste doesn't
we'll come
lie.
back with that.
Mandela Mash,
Talk radio
the
would be
only
better
sane
if hosts
choice
were
for US
neutral.
Senate. Available only in Wisconsin. Go to
Instead of right or left.
monacobrewingcompany.com to find
Let's
where
talk
you can
about it.
buy this fresh new flavor of American democracy.
Forecast on the Shaw. High of 70 this afternoon.
Then we can move
Partly cloudy skies,
the 90210
southwest
to after the disabilities. Because I think we have 8 minutes of that, because I think that's an
Tonight,
interesting.
Lows level off around 45. Highs around 70. Tomorrow, cloudy. Cooler Thursday and Friday with highs from the upper 40s to the low 60s. Chance for scattered rain showers Thursday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
You go grab my coffee. Okay, left it. Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. What's music are we listening to, Jane?
That is Kendrick Lamar that I pulled up out of nowhere.
Oh.
Yes, called Feel.
I dig it. I think he was just on SNL.
Earl had it up.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Earl. Earl with the good music.
And Connor, yes.
So we are talking about the Evers budget proposal on increasing shared revenue to local governments, helping different municipalities out that are strapped for cash, including Milwaukee, but many more cities besides them, because shared revenue has been stagnant since 2012, and some of our cities are broke. And that does not fare well, because while we all live in a state that has a $5 billion surplus, we also all live in different cities. And so if those cities are responsible for paying things and they have no money to pay for those things, that's not a good thing. So my question to the audience was, if you are someone who really likely would not vote for Tony Evers because he's a Democrat, is there anything he could do that you at least, even not that necessarily that you would vote for him, but is there anything that he could do that would make you at least go, well, I can get on board with that?
That was a good decision. That will help me.
Because every time it seems like he does something that reflects what people want, that is a more moderate stance on something, the response is, well, that's just a political stunt.
Well, I find that so interesting, considering that Tim Michaels is on record as saying he fully supports Wisconsin's 1849 abortion ban, which has no exceptions for rape and incest. And when polling started coming out showing that that was highly unpopular, he said, oh, no, wait, I believe in those exceptions.
Yeah, which is the right way to respond. You were supposed to be you are not an ideologue. When you were elected to represent voters, first of all, you're not just representing the base of the people who voted for you. You're supposed to be representing everyone. So if that's in an assembly district, that's everyone in your assembly district. If that's a state senate district, that's everyone in your state senate. If you're a mayor, it's everyone in your city. If you're governor, it's everyone in the state. And so to try to take a pulse on where the sentiment lies and reflect what people actually want, that is supposed to be your job, not to just carry water for the party that you're the head of. And obviously that is in a utopian situation of how it was planned to be and not the reality that we're living in. But did we get any texts, Jane?
We got a text from the 715 who says, I think talk radio would be better if hosts were neutral more than left or right.
Which is interesting, because isn't that just the news then? Is that really talk radio? I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm trying to think of how, if anything, I also recently got a message saying that instead of posing questions, that they would really like to hear what my actual opinion is on things. And so If talk radios, because we think about what is the definition of talk radio, and I think it's usually talk shows, and talk shows are different than the news. So in the same way, if we want to take the example of Fox or MSNBC, there are news shows and there are talk shows,
opinion shows,
and this is an opinion show that editorializes the news in the fact that we talk about things that are happening, largely try to focus on things that are happening in Wisconsin, not always just politics. Obviously, we just highlighted a new fashion school that is in Wisconsin. Yesterday, we were talking about ginseng, trying to cover a variety of topics that uplift and celebrate things in Wisconsin, but then also talk about the politics and try to explain them sometimes how I view them in a way that is maybe less boring or complicated than
a policy
WISI might talk about it. Because talking about it in the very factual, this is what happened, neutral way, that is just the news. So that would be WPR.
That would be a newscast.
That would be a newscast. And so I'm trying to think of how different this show would be and how much potentially less entertaining it would be if it was just neutral.
If Rush Limbaugh were still with us,
R.I.P.
There would never have been a Rush Limbaugh. There would never be any of these major, at least right-wing talkers, I don't think, if they presented everything both sides. That would never have happened.
Well, it's just, yeah, because then it's just, I mean, I think it's interesting to have, like, I would love to have a deeper cast of characters, like we had Matt Cordio on last week, who more people to come on and talk about things from different points of view.
Absolutely.
That would be great. But ultimately, I don't know if people want, no offense to the 715, I think, as you can see reflected in numbers, because actually when it comes to television news, like traditional newscasts on the ABC World News, like the nightly major network news, is losing audience to cable news.
Right.
And largely cable news, whether that's, I mean, CNN's having its own
issues,
renaissance of whatever they're doing over there right now. But the Fox News, MSNBC, OAN, CNBC, I guess CNBC is mostly like finance stuff. But, their shows that are wildly popular are talk shows that present an opinion and a slant and this is how I see the world. And so I think it's necessary for both, and that our newscasts should be neutral. But I'm trying to think of how long anyone would listen to a personality-driven talk show if the personality was neutral.
It doesn't generate, it wouldn't, I'm sorry, but it just wouldn't generate. And it wouldn't generate.
Has he texted back during this conversation?
He has not.
Okay.
Yeah, I just.
715, if you're listening and you want to talk this out, we'd love to. Because I think this is interesting as far as what separates a talk show and would make it neutral, that it doesn't just become the news, unless you don't talk about political topics.
Well, we can talk about fashion and ginseng.
We can talk about Bella Hadid's boobs again.
Oh, that's the whole next half hour.
And so, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know what it would sound like, but we're going to take a break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Pewaukee, always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Maybe you need a more muscular voice on talk radio. Maybe you need Matt Flynn direct. But Moscow Mitch just said that if the Republicans win the 2022 elections, he will block any Supreme Court nominee Biden puts up. So word to Justice Breyer, you idiot, retire, get out of there, open it up so Biden can put in a Supreme Court appointment. Do it nicely, retire. We'll give you a gold watch, retire.
Matt Flynn Direct airs weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. cut you down.
The Devil's Advocates.
Hey, Jenny.
It's up to all of us. It's not just up to Democrats. Are we ready to rid our country of...
We'll focus on that because even if I have to bump the ugly laws, that's evergreen. So we can always come back to it.
Children who are raped into pregnancy. When is enough that we're going to vote out those fascists?
I'm putting you down for Caller Hall of Fame today. We have to carry these messages. Even if the Democratic Party is incapable, you keep it up.
News Minute. Police in Indonesia say delays in unlocking stadium gates set off a deadly soccer disaster.
Authorities say the gates at the soccer stadium, where police fired tear gas and set off a deadly crush, were too small and could only accommodate 2 at a time when hundreds were trying to escape. Photos from the Malang Stadium, where 125 people died and hundreds more injured on Saturday night in one of sporting events' worst disasters, have showed 4 connecting doors forming one exit. Police say their probe is focused on 6 of the gates. They were unlocked but only able to accommodate 2 people at most. Officials say the gates are the responsibility of the organisers. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
A judge threw out charges against 7 people in the Flint, Michigan water crisis following a decision by the state Supreme Court saying a 1-judge grand jury had no authority to issue indictments. I'm Ed Donahue.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnier with your headlines. Experts are predicting food costs will continue rising, especially after Hurricane Ian caused massive destruction in Florida. Just last week, the cost of orange juice went up 5%, according to CNN. Florida produces 90% of the country's orange juice. Ian ravaged many citrus-producing counties in Florida. It's expected to take several seasons for the trees to recover. Local experts say the biggest strain in Wisconsin will be felt by independent grocers, as they'll have to fight big box stores for products, with large retailers seeking produce from suppliers who would usually sell to independent grocery stores. And after falling for weeks, gas prices jumping again in Wisconsin. AAA says Wisconsinites on average are paying $3.93 per gallon, a nearly 20% increase from the week before. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK, 540 AM.
I got the lying election politician blues. They say they're gonna raise my minimum wage from 35 cents.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. We are taking your texts and your calls on a conversation that started with the bigger question of, could someone from the opposite party than the one you typically vote for do something that makes you at least say, all right, you're getting something done, versus you just constantly deeming it as a political stunt. And then that turned into a text that we got, thank you for the text, 715, about talk show hosts being neutral. And now I think, do we have some more text on
We
this?
do. 715, checking back in. And again, thank you so much. 844-967-2789. I think there should be a balance of a negative to a positive when talking about each candidate. It seems like all anyone hears is that Evers is bad.
I think that's true. And it's hard. I will totally be honest with that, in that I know I have my own bias when it comes to where I get my news from, as much as, and I try, and I do purposefully, I follow Breitbart. I follow Wisconsin Now. or right now. I follow Empower Wisconsin. I think I follow Dan O'Donnell on Twitter. Like I try to follow people from all sorts of angles when it comes to Wisconsin news and national news. Now, when I read what they write, there's a little part of me go, because sometimes it feels incredibly inflammatory and against a lot of things that I believe in, especially when it comes, because the truth is, if I'm being totally honest, where my priorities lie, and if you've been listening to me for any period of time, I think more than being a Democrat, being a liberal, being a progressive, what I really identify as like a collectivist, and that I very much believe in what is best for most is best for all. And that I'm very much not a rugged individualist, and that I believe that none of us do it on our own, and that the world is better the more inclusive we are, whether that's on religion, race, disability, and making things accessible. I think you can probably tell in the intentional way of the guests I bring on to try to consistently demonstrate that Wisconsin is not a monolith, and that we have people who live here who
are purple.
Yes. And so that leads me to want to support politicians who also feel that way and who have empathy towards different races, different experiences, different religions, and want to make space to include them. And so thus, as of right now, where the politics lie, that's certainly more blue than it is red. And, if the Republican Party of my dad's, when my dad was my age, of like the Tommy Thompsons in the 90s and fiscal conservative, there's arguments to be made about that, but it wasn't so much of the messaging about gay kids, trans kids, and grooming and stuff that just feels like this is not the biggest problems that we need to be solving right now. And yet it works because it scares people.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to get on board with people who are leading their campaigns with that kind of messaging.
And that kind of fear mongering.
And so I do try. And so when I read these different outlets or personalities or politicians who are conservatives, Republicans, however they identify their political leanings, it's hard. I still read it because I want to be exposed to it, but it's hard for me not to wince a little bit. Versus, I'm sure to a certain extent, someone who is on a different spectrum than that, when they read, our guest for the next hour is Francesca Hong, who I would say that most of her entire campaign and her career as a politician has very much focused on inclusivity. I'm sure there's things that has written that she's gotten a lot of backlash from people who, think she's part of the woke mob or whatever they call it. And so I do agree with you, 715, as far as trying to, the responsibility as a talk show host to try to at least be fair. I do agree with you that. And I do try to, there's a lot of headlines and there's other shows that I know do this, and we could come in here every day and complain about Ron Johnson, or we could complain about Robin Voss, or we could complain about Tim Michaels, and that could be the show. And we purposely don't do that. There's times where it feels like we have to because it's big enough news, but I don't find that very interesting. And so to just
or productive,
or even to come still spend so much time talking about Trump or Gableman, and we're going to make fun of them every once in a while, but spending so much energy and anger over complaining about them. And I know that there's a ton of shows from the opposite side of the spectrum on some of the other stations who that is what they focus on. They complain about Tony Evers all the time. They complain about Mandela. They complain about Biden and Kamala Harris,
but
that's the show.
Their point is to throw bombs. Their point is to get you angry and keep you angry.
And that's not the show. But I do agree that I think to try to balance and be more fair and weigh pros with cons is a responsible thing to do if you have your own show. And I don't know. I feel like we try to do that here, but maybe we're failing.
Well, but For one thing, I think it's important that people realize we're only 3 months in.
Yes.
And so we make lots of reaches to all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
And certainly across the political spectrum. And for every candidate that we have had on, we have reached out to their opponent or their challenger in every instance. And in many of them, we just never hear back anything. So it's not like efforts aren't being made to do that, because they are. But I think it might take us a little bit more time to establish a little bit more credibility before some of those people will deign to join us.
That's true.
On our program. We do have another text from John, who's from the Falls. You had mentioned last half hour talking about Tim Michaels, who's running against Tony Evers, and his suggestion for paid parental leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what John from the Falls says. Kristin, I think there needs to be a distinction here. I agree with you. Taking action which is against your core belief is the right thing to do when it is what the will of the people demands. It's far different from just changing what you're saying so you have a better chance of getting elected when everybody knows what you truly believe. There is no way Tim Michaels believes in exceptions for abortions when he has contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to Right to Life organizations.
It's hard to disagree with that.
It is hard to
Well, and
disagree
that
with
goes
that.
back to, the spin of when that first came out, in how Tim Michaels and his wife where they've donated their money to, what their foundation has funded, that, granted, it is the job of any campaign manager and any person in the comms on any given campaign is to take the bombs that get thrown and have a response to them. We saw this, if you are on social media at all, a campaign that has nothing to do with Wisconsin necessarily, but Herschel Walker, actually both Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz yesterday had pretty big blows to their campaigns, because apparently Dr. Oz has killed like 300 puppies.
Oh, it's a horrible... I couldn't even bring myself to
I haven't read the whole thing.
read the whole thing.
But
it's so upsetting.
That sounds incredibly upsetting. So
in a research,
you would have
in a research
capacity that they were doing studies on dogs. And for animal lovers like Jane and I,
it's painful.
Yes. And so you thought that probably would have been the biggest bomb yesterday in national campaign news. But then last night, this is getting kind of into the weeds, and I don't really care, but it was happening.
This is a big thing.
So Christian Walker is a young, I think he's gay, attractive, but very conservative TikToker person.
Social
I think he's
influencer.
working on Ron DeSantis's campaign. But he is Herschel Walker's son. And up until last night had been seemingly supportive of his father's Senate run, which has also been kind of a disaster. And then last night, and he started tweeting like, anyone in his family that like has asked my dad not to do this, he abused us for years. And that kind of just like, people are qualifying that as a fatal blow to an already pretty bad campaign for a pretty bad candidate. That's about as far as I know. Did you know much more about that?
What happened was, of course, Herschel Walker has come out as being very pro-life with no exceptions. And there is a woman, now don't forget, he has fathered 4 children that we know of that he refused to acknowledge before this came up and he was confronted with this. And now there is another woman who said that he paid for her to have an abortion. She has the actual receipt from the clinic and a get well card signed to her by Herschel Walker. And so that is what tripped off his son, Christian, to jump on TikTok. And now he's getting unbelievable pushback from people on the right saying, you're ruining your father's campaign.
Yeah.
And disregarding, his mother is the woman who said that he held a gun to her head and threatened to blow her brains out, right? That is Christian Walker's mother.
I think so.
He said that they had to move 6 times in 6 months to escape his father's violence. And now we're coming back to blame the messenger,
I know,
I guess.
Well, and I bring that up, this is a tangent, but I bring it up only because, of course, people had to respond, right? Someone from the Herschel campaign, someone from the GOP, the national GOP, office, trying to take control over, like, win enough seats to have control over the Senate. Again, there's obviously a machine that is involved in trying to get people elected, and it is someone's hatchet job to defend or spin
or diffuse
when these things happen in campaigns. We're friends with some of them. To read Tim Miller's book, he was a famous person who did this for the Republican Party until he became a never Trumper. And so I get that this is part of the job, right? This is Anna Kelly from Wisconsin GOP. This is her job, is to figure out a way to spin this in a way that is a little bit more palatable. And so when Tim Michaels, this got announced, I think Milwaukee Journal Sentinel was the organization or the outlet that broke it. But the fact is, he's never held public office. And so where he donates his money is an indicator of how he would make policy, potentially, because there's no other record, unlike a single term we have for Tony Evers, to base how would he actually prioritize and govern. Yeah. And so it wasn't an attack on his religious freedom of where he can donate his money. It is an indicator of how he would actually govern. And so I have no idea. Would he, if this happens, if Tim Michaels actually wins, because we started the show with the special session. They gavelled in and gavelled out.
Oh,
I guess the assembly was 20 seconds.
Oh.
And it sounds like the Senate was 10 seconds.
Well, that seems longer than usual.
So any movement on that topic of the criminal abortion ban is not going to get solved before the election. But if Tim Michaels were to get elected, I don't know, would they, maybe they would come up with some kind of legislation that had exceptions for rape and incest, because this is so wildly unpopular.
But
I don't know.
Medical marijuana is wildly popular in Wisconsin. Red flag laws are wildly popular in Wisconsin. Permitless concealed carry is not wildly popular in Wisconsin.
Ending gerrymandering.
And yes,
very popular.
Isn't that? Yes, it's so wonderful. You can do whatever you want and completely ignore the will of your constituents. It's infuriating.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This was a fun segment. I didn't know this was where we were going to go. I was going to talk about ugly laws, and we're going to have to save that for maybe tomorrow with Greg Bach, because that is a true thing. Ugly laws were on the books until 1974, which basically included like beggars, vagrants, people who had disabilities, not allowed to go out in public. So that's what we were going to talk about. So you'll have to come back tomorrow if you are more interested in that history lesson, because this took a turn. But I think it was a necessary turn. I'm happy with where we got in this conversation. But if you'd like to weigh in, 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. But for now, we're going to take a break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Well, one man tells me this, another one tells me that, but they ain't got a clue. They don't know where it's at. They lie through their teeth, and brother, you can believe that they ain't gonna make a crazy fool out of me. I don't wanna be a bummer. I'm the fear of it.
Mental health challenges impact us all in some way. Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services is working hard to meet these challenges, ushering a new model of mental health care, redesigned with you in mind. This community.
Unless we have more texts, we can go to 90210.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services, here for you, close to home. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health emergency, contact 414-257-7222.
If you think you need a home inspection, you probably do. Hi, I'm Todd Osborne of Orion Inspections. And buyers, sellers, and even flippers, I'm talking to you. Knowledge is power when it comes to real estate transactions. You'll get an image-packed, searchable, digital, printable report of the condition of the house, things to keep an eye on, any safety issues or defects, and the knowledge to make smart, informed decisions. Your instinct is telling you to get an inspection, and instincts are usually right. Learn more or schedule today at orioninspections.com.
If you're looking to improve your home, you need to check out Tundraland in Waukesha. Redesign your bathroom with showers you'll want to sing in. Tundraland offers one-day installation, flexible financing, jacuzzi bath remodel, shower and bath systems, customizable options, and they have employee installers. If you mention WAUK 540 AM or 101 FM The Shaw, you can get a $500 gift card for your next project, which is great because they also do decks and cabinet refacing. Visit the showroom at 1741 Dolphin Drive in Waukesha and mention The Shaw sent you.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. High of 70 this afternoon, under partly cloudy skies. Winds out of the southwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight. Lows level off around 45. Highs around 70. Tomorrow, cloudy. Cooler Thursday and Friday with highs from the upper 40s to the low 60s. Chance for scattered rain showers Thursday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey on this day, 10-4.
10-4, yes.
October 4th, 1990, 90210 debuted.
Wow.
I was 4.
I've never seen it.
Brooke, how old were you? What year were you born in?
2000.
So this was 10 years before social media manager Brooke was born.
Oh, wow.
But you love the show.
Yeah.
What channel did you watch this show on?
I don't remember, but I wasn't supposed to be watching it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was it naughty?
I mean, for like a 10-year-old, yeah. I should not have been watching it, but I just loved like the drama. I was like, oh my gosh, is this what adult life is like? High school?
High school's going to be like?
Yeah, it wasn't like that at all.
I never watched it. I did watch Saved by the Bell, which actually premiered a year before 90210.
Ah.
That was 1989. I watched a lot of Saved by the Bell. I never really got into 90210.
Just in downloading that clip, they were so young. Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling and Shannon Doherty and Brian Austin Green looks like he was 9 years old when I look at pictures of him now. It's amazing.
I want to look at the pictures because it's because that really sparked, I guess if Saved by the Bell was right before then, but you think about, was there really any teenage high school like shows that focused on teenagers prior to then? That was kind of the drama genre.
No, there were certainly comedies. Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah.
Was in the 70s, and that's what I grew up with when I was going to high school. But that was much sillier. There was no...
It was a comedy.
Yeah, there was no sex. There was no, very few naughty things.
I guess even Saved by the Bell was also a comedy and not a drama, even though I'm so excited. It was a very dramatic episode. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared.
This was a Saved by the Bell episode?
Oh, you don't know what this is? Oh my God. So my doppelganger, Elizabeth Berkley, also AKA Jessie Spano, and she had an episode because Jessie Spano's character was a very type A. She was going to go to Stanford, super smart, like feminist character. And there was one episode where she was just balancing too much. She had too much on her plate. She had school. I think she had SATs. She had the music video she was doing with Lisa Turtle and Kelly Kapoor. And Kapowski. Who's Kelly Kapoor? Is that Mindy?
Could be.
Kalig? Yeah. Kelly Kapowski. Sorry. And she got addicted to caffeine pills, which, fast forward 15 years and that substitute the caffeine pills with Adderall. Totally. That is a very likely scenario. But I don't know if caffeine pills would have, especially over the counter caffeine pills would have strung you out as much as she was strung out in that episode. But that was a very dramatic episode.
In Saved by the Bell.
But truly, I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like that 90210, the original, opened the gates for the OC.
Oh, yes.
Then they One Tree Hill, which I auditioned for.
Did you?
Even Friday Night Lights, which I guess, the main character of Friday Night Lights really is the coach. And so it's not just focused on teenagers. But what other teenage dramas am I thinking?
Degrassi was a big one.
Yeah, and that was after.
Yeah, and Life of an American Teenager. I think Shailene Woodley was the.
Oh, I never watched that one.
Yeah, that wasn't a good show.
Trying to think. So One Tree Hill, The OC, Dawson's Creek,
Freaks and Geeks.
That was a great show. Only one season though.
Oh, it only lasted.
I think it only lasted one season.
But we forget. I mean, 90210 was an Aaron Spelling production, and say what you will about him, he launched tons of careers. He launched tons of hit shows with that same schlocky, sexy, drama-y format.
Because what were the other ones? The other ones were Charlie's Angels. Dynasty?
That sounds about right.
What was the other one besides Dynasty? Dallas. Did he do Dallas?
I don't think he was Dallas, but there was Falcon Crest, and there was, oh gosh, there were a whole bunch of them. But Robert from Monona says Party of Five.
Oh, yes. That one was good, but that was more of I feel like, is that the same genre? Even though they were all young, I feel like that's a family drama as much as it was like, teenagers in high school, different friend groups. I didn't watch Party of Five either, though. I got to be honest.
I think I saw a couple episodes of that, but I think 90210, you're right, is very specific to. It's about the teenagers, and it's about the teenagers.
And the parents were the ancillary characters.
Yeah, they're just there.
Now that Party of Five made me think of Ally McBeal, which was not a teenage show at all. It was a lawyer show, but that was a good show. Did you ever watch Ally McBeal? What were your 90s shows that you watched?
I'm trying to think.
We watched a lot of ER and Chicago Hope.
I watched ER at the beginning. I tend to stop loving things once they start becoming really popular.
Okay.
And then
what are you watching now that isn't that popular?
Well, this is probably popular. Now I'm
sorry to put you on the spot.
Now I'm all into home improvement shows, and Chip and Joanna Gaines have these fixer-upper house
Isn't that
shows
the couple in Texas
in Waco?
And they just have an entire village that they've created. Don't they have a whole mass cult following?
That sounds like that could be.
So that is very popular.
It is really popular. But so they help these people rehab their homes. But again, because I hate long-term commitments, I only watch the setup and then I fast forward through everything and then I just watch the reveal. I don't have time for all of this.
I can't with the decisions and the hemming and the hawing. Just show me.
Just do it.
Show me the after picture.
Get it over with.
That's really funny. I'm trying to think of other. So what was the best part of 90210 for you, Brooke?
These kids were really rich and living in Beverly Hills, and I was like, that is so cool. And I was living in Oak Creek, and nothing fun was happening, and they're just lavish and having so much fun, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to have that.
They're driving convertibles.
I was gonna say, didn't they all have really expensive cars and really expensive outfits? And
well, what's funny is, having lived in LA, I finished high school in LA, finished at Santa Monica High School, is that in reality, and Beverly Hills High School is a good high school. It is a good public, but it's a public high school. And so
really?
So and granted, how we fund our schools is through property taxes. And so it is a good public school because it is plop in the middle of Beverly Hills. But in reality, when you think of LA and you think of the rich kid schools, you think of Harvard Westlake and Brentwood and these schools that cost these 25 or 30 grand to go to for a year per kid
per high school
versus the free public high school Beverly Hills. And so and I don't know, maybe in the 90s, those private schools were not as prevalent as they were by the time I moved there in 2003, but I highly doubt that. All right. Well, we're already in the third hour. So when we come back, Representative Francesca Hong will join us for the full hour. It's going to be great. She's wonderful. I did tell her she can't curse on the air though. So stick with us.
That will make my life easier.
That dumb button. Get it ready. All right. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Our guest is Kristin Elfheim, who is the state Senate candidate for District 19 in the Fox Valley.
Listen Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
There are really good people that have been in Madison on both sides. And if we're not letting the strongest problem solvers win, we're making a mistake.
Listen to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey right here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Let me be real. The one thing about Matt Flynn Direct, the show, is that we cut through the baloney. We talk about history. We talk about the hard facts. We don't just soothe people's feelings with a lot of baloney. The blunt truth is that Manchin and Sinema keep whittling this thing down and obstructing it. I do not believe that Manchin would like to see anything go through on soft infrastructure.
Matt Flynn Direct airs weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W226DR Waukesha, always streaming at
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Country music superstar Loretta Lynn has died. She was 90. We get more from the AP's Margie Zarraletta.
If you knew nothing else about Loretta Lynn, you knew she was a coal miner's daughter. Lynn came from humble beginnings and used that as material for her music. She married Oliver Doolittle Lynn when she was 13. He heard her singing around the house and bought her a guitar, and she taught herself how to play and write songs. Lynn said in a 2010 AP interview she was a housewife and mother for 15 years before she became an entertainer.
I had to live my songs to write them, and I think it's everyday living. I think everybody probably lives the same way.
I'm Margie Zarraletta.
3 physicists, including American John Clauser, share the Nobel Prize in Physics for work on quantum science.
Well, it's been a long time. This is all work that I did more than 50 years ago. Started when I was a graduate student back, wrote a paper in 1969.
The prize is for discovering the way unseen particles, such as photons, can be linked or entangled with each other, even when they are separated by large distances. A new report says Georgia Republican Senate nominee Herschel Walker paid for an abortion for his girlfriend in 2009. Walker has vehemently opposed abortion rights and called the accusation in the Daily Beast a flat-out lie. A judge in Michigan dismissed charges against 7 people in the Flint water scandal, including 2 former state health officials blamed for deaths from Legionnaire's disease. The judge took action 3 months after the Michigan Supreme Court said a 1-judge grand jury had no authority to issue indictments. A report that Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter again has forced a halt of trading of shares of Twitter on Wall Street. Speaking of Wall Street, stocks are sharply higher in afternoon trading and clawed back more of the ground they lost in a miserable 7 weeks. This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell at the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000.
Hello.
What's up? What's up?
How's the Capitol?
The Shaw 101 FM.
I'm happy to be out of there right now since nothing happens.
Since nothing happened. Well, I think you'll like the video that I'm going to post later today to make fun of all of them. So I have to work on that after today's show. But
I'm so excited.
It's so frustrating. But was the turnout good, at least for the rally? Not good.
It's okay. It's okay. There was a call I couldn't miss at noon, and I was told it was going to start at 11:30. And you would think 2 years into this, I would know nothing ever starts on time in politics, but
yeah. So now where are you headed after this? You're in your car.
I am at my kiddo's school. I actually probably shouldn't be parked here because can you hear that?
No.
Okay, cool. Never mind. Yeah, because our babysitter is sick today, so I got to pick him up. So I figured if I'm here and then do the show, I can't be late.
That is.
I'm notorious for being late to pick up my kid.
Good, smart thinking. Way to get ahead of it.
So I'm
all
just
right.
creepily like hanging out in the car parked in front of his school. It's fine.
No, where does he go? Well, you don't have to say it right now, but all right, we got to start. All right.
Progressive viewpoints in the heart of one of the reddest parts of our state. We'll be doing our show live on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM on Wednesday nights at 7. And you can check out the podcast at upnorthpodcast.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matner with your headlines. Former Packers quarterback Brett Favre has hired an attorney to represent him in the $70 million welfare fraud scheme in Mississippi. Eric Hirschman served on former President Trump's first impeachment defense team. Favre allegedly received millions of dollars for his startup company and for speeches he never gave. NBC reporting the nation's poorest state paid Favre $1.1 million to give speeches out of federal welfare money intended for needy families. The state's auditor is demanding the money back with interest. NBC reports Favre paid back the fees, so far not the $228,000 in interest. So far, Favre hasn't been charged or accused of any crime in connection with the scandal. The Brewers with a walk-off win against the Diamondbacks last night in the bottom of the 10th, but shortly after the Crew eliminated from the postseason the Phillies, clinching the final wildcard spot in the National League. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
Back through the years, I go wandering once again, back to the seasons of my youth.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. We're in hour 3, and I'm so excited because this hour we are joined for the full hour by mom, service industry worker, community organizer, fellow Madison West Regent, my friend, representative of Wisconsin's 76th Assembly District, Francesca Hong. How are you doing today?
I am maintaining. Really pumped up by that Dolly Parton though, so I'm feeling better. Thanks so much for having me, and hi Jane.
I have so much. I don't know where to start. So for people who don't know Representative Francesca Hong, she is finishing up her freshman term. She was part of the very excellent freshman class of strong women who spent the last 2 years fighting in a minority legislature, but the amount that I feel like you guys, the attention you brought to different issues, how public and how outspoken you were on social media, I feel like you did everything that you could. At least from the spectator seats where I was sitting, I was impressed with how much I feel like you made your voice heard in a legislature that often doesn't even let you have a hearing on some of the things that you're trying to pass. So at least to start with, how would you sum up your first 2 years in the legislature?
Absurd.
Okay.
It's the first word that comes to mind. And thank you so much for shouting out our freshman class. It is going to be difficult for folks coming up to top the collective work that we've done, the solidarity that we've built, and really, I think, an understanding that the legislature is most powerful when we have strong relationships and trust with one another. And I think the freshmen really tried to reinforce that. And I really appreciated how diverse the class was. We had folks from suburban areas, folks from rural areas. We had the most diverse class racially and ethnically, the first immigrant representative, the first Asian representative, yours truly. And so I think the freshman class was really an embodiment of of what the legislature can be like and should be like in terms when we have a government that is actually a force of good. In describing the last 2 years, I think I'm still feeling a little bit like we're drinking from a fire hose, which is the term that I use when folks ask me how I felt after the first couple of months. But we're still trying to build power. We're still trying to regain the majority and fighting to maintain the governor's veto.
Yeah, and those are all important. And I want to focus mostly on stuff that's happened the last 2 years, because since we have you for the full hour, I want to definitely talk later in the show about all the campaigning that you're doing, despite being in, I think you'd be the first to admit, a pretty safe district as far as where you are, but that doesn't mean that you're not working your butt off for other campaigns, other districts. And so in the 2 years, what do you feel like were some of the big wins from your perspective?
I think in terms of better cohesive messaging, we have made huge improvements. So when it comes to abortion, everyone fighting for this right to and access to healthcare, that abortion is healthcare, that the word we need to use more of, and then have that be kind of our gateway into more complex conversations about how the issue of abortion impacts everyone. I think we had some major wins when it comes to ensuring that we all show up for these special sessions that our Republican counterparts continue to gavel in and out of, or like today's session where they just read off a script and didn't even bring a gavel.
They didn't even bring a gavel?
The Senate president did. So Kapanga brought a gavel, but Tyler August, the Speaker pro tempore, did not bring a gavel. He read off his script.
Do you think he forgot it?
I think that they were trying to be sly and say they didn't technically gavel in and out since he didn't have a gavel. But it was abhorrent and it's cowardly that they won't even debate the issue of healthcare for so many Wisconsinites. The fact that they are unwilling to debate is a signal that they know they are on the losing side of this issue that impacts everyone. Yeah.
Fran, I'm curious, are they required to be there in person for these special sessions? Does everyone have to show up, or can just two people show up and gavel in and gavel out?
I saw quite a few of my Republican colleagues, including Representative Rantham, but they were not on the floor. It was just Tyler August and one other member, and they are not required to all be there. No. But we can only gavel in, only the majority party can call the session.
So I think we hear so much, what makes the headlines so often is how toxic the Capitol can be, the partisanship, we'd spend an entire, almost the whole hour prior to this talking about no matter what the other side does, so often we're like, well, we call it a political stunt, even if it's kind of advocating or doing what we said we wanted. I was using the example of Governor Tony Evers' proposal yesterday as far as increasing shared revenue, a lot of which would go to police, fire, emergency services. And yet their response was, well, this is just a political stunt, even though this is what we are campaigning on, which is funding the police. And is there any examples in the 2 years of where you felt like there was some kind of bipartisanship or there was some kind of coalition building across the aisle?
Well, we had the win with Lincoln Hills and closing Lincoln Hills. And so I think when it came to juvenile justice and making sure that our babies weren't in cages, we were able to come together and get this done. And mad kudos to Representative Goyke, who has been working on this for close to a decade with Representative Schra. And so to end the session, and I should have mentioned this in one of our wins, I think it was a big win that we came together and we came to a vote to close Lincoln Hills for good. And there are going to be different ways that different representatives can message this. as a win, as a way forward, as an opportunity to really reevaluate the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to our youths, and why we need bigger investments. I can almost guarantee that those investments won't come from the opposition party, because again, we are sitting on a $5 billion surplus right now. However, that piece of legislation, to know that like it is inhumane what was happening in Lincoln Hills, and even the closing of it has its complexities, but we are able to now have those conversations and leverage the point that it was a bipartisan win to move it forward.
Well, that's good. And I think that's actually a story that we haven't talked a lot about. And maybe we should give it more attention to that it deserves, as far as what a big deal it was, but that's closing and what replacements and options are coming out of that. But so as far as we're talking to Francesca Hong, who is a representative of Wisconsin's 76th Assembly District, she's here all hour. And one of the things I find for you, because your district is in Madison, and the capital is obviously in Madison. And so largely you, as a representative of Madison, it's not expected of you to go all across the state in the way that you have. But there's actually a part on your website that I think it is Fran across the state, or Hong around Wisconsin. And so Hong around, hashtag Hong around Wisconsin. And truly, you look at this map and there's your picture with your Rosie the Riveter head handkerchief in your hair, and you've gone all over the state. And so what was the big motivation for you to make sure that despite these different parts of the state not being people who are ever going to vote for you, at least as long as you're in the assembly, that you got out there and saw so much of Wisconsin?
I think you'll see in the headlines, and a lot of the narrative is scapegoating Madison and Milwaukee as we are hoarding resources, as we are out of touch. And what I'm able to gain and show from these visits and really building community and coalition with people all across Wisconsin is that most of us want the same things. Most of us want to see our communities invested in so that we can be and feel safer. We want our main streets to thrive. We want entrepreneurship and young people to do well in schools so they continue to invest in communities. And so as a lifelong Madisonian, as a firm believer in public schools, as a service industry worker, as a mother, I have all these different identities that I am incredibly proud of. And I know there are so many other people in Wisconsin that are proud of their identities too. And if me as a Madison rep can go to places like Hammond or Stevens Point, Superior, and connect with voters, and I don't go and say that I'm a rep, right? I go and say I'm a mom who cares. I work in restaurants. I'm a small business owner. Because I hold these identities, I feel extra responsible to make sure that we're making connections across the state and really have the receipts to prove to folks that so many of us want the same things, and our current government is not representative of what the majority of Wisconsinites want. So if I can come back with a conversation and know, and they know that someone from Madison is up caring about them, right? That it's not just all rosy here in Madison, that we have our issues too. And and a lot of people don't know how state government works. They may not know who their representative is or their state senator is. They don't know that because we're sitting on $5 billion in the state coffers that, their public schools aren't being funded and they're having to go to referendum all the time. So it's both a conversation, it's about educating one another, but also approaching it in a way that is not elitist, that I am the candidate or representative coming to you. I am someone from Madison who also cares about what's going on in your community. And I think that it's really important that we humanize and make personal politics again. And I also have to point out that many of my colleagues in the Assembly Dems and in the state Senate are traveling as well, and they're canvassing and they're talking to voters, and they're really making it about advocating for our candidates, right? It's sometimes because the Democratic brand itself has become so toxic in certain areas of the state, to be able to make it personal and humanize it and say, as a mom, as a restaurant worker, as someone who cares, I'm coming to you from a different part of the state saying we need change and we can do it together.
Well, when we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about maybe some of the things that you learned or surprising parts of the state that you didn't know, because I also was a Madison kid. And so certainly as crossing the state, there's great parts of the state I didn't even know that were there in stories. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about healthy school meals, and you're here for the whole hour. So stay tuned. Francesca Hong here, and this is As Goes Wisconsin.
In every stitch. I even told him all that story Mama told me while she sewed, and why my coat of many colors was worth more than all their clothes. They didn't understand it, and I tried to make them see. One is only poor, only if they choose to be.
WAUK and the Shaw are the new kids on the radio block, and that block happens to be on Wisconsin Ave, Waukesha. Now is a great time to advertise locally with 540 AM and the Shaw 101 FM, while the ads are inexpensive and the audience is rapidly growing. Sponsorships available for This Week in Waukesha, Raised in the Shaw, or live local music on the weekends. Spring packages starting at just $495 a month. Get started today by emailing info@waukradio.com.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote, get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon with highs around 70. Southwest winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy again tonight. Lows level off around 45. High temperatures reach up to 70. Tomorrow, overcast. Low 60s Thursday with a chance for scattered showers. Upper 40s, partly cloudy skies Friday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest all hour is Francesca Hong, who is the representative of Wisconsin's 76th Assembly District. And before the break, we were talking about how many different parts of the state you have visited and how many different constituents you've talked to that aren't necessarily in your district. But what are some of the surprising things you've learned about the state since getting out of Madison?
Well, I probably had the best bowl of noodles I've had in Stevens Point. There is a Vietnamese grocery store in Stevens Point, and one of my favorite Vietnamese dishes is called bún, which is the cold noodle dish with lots of vegetables and a sweet and sour sauce. And normally it comes with like an egg roll and grilled shrimp or pork or whatever. And they had head-on full prawns. The sauce was delicious. And I always tell folks, like, when there's a restaurant inside the grocery store, that's the restaurant you want to go to.
Oh, I didn't know that inside tip. All right. Mm-hmm. That's the grocery store. All right. So when there's a grocery store with a restaurant, the food's going to be good.
Oh yeah. In Madison, some of the best ethnic food is inside our ethnic grocery stores. And then in Superior, there's a pizza spot. I'm blanking on the name. I tweeted about it earlier, but I probably have the best tres leches cake I've had in the state of Wisconsin, up in Superior.
All right. I've yet to go to Superior, so I'll put that on the list.
Isn't it beautiful, Fran? Superior it's so cool.
It's stunning, and their main street is beautiful, and I think there's I talk to a lot of folks who are super passionate about their public schools, people who, in superiors where I recognize the power of local candidates. We had a woman who we asked her what she cared about, and she was like, I'm very, I'm anti-abortion, I am for the Second Amendment. And then the minute we started talking about how, the candidate I was with, the current candidate had asked her to run, that she's from the community, her boys go to their public school. She talked about the sports teams. Before I knew it, we're in her living room. I'm petting her cat, even though I'm allergic because this cat is super cute. And, this connection to knowing that your representative, your possible future representative is at your door. It's powerful. And I think that even if we maybe hadn't changed her mind about voting for all Dems, in that moment, I knew that knowing that someone in her community cared and had, wanted to be at her door talking to her, was a way for her to rethink about maybe voting for other Dems too. But in that moment, I could feel that she was going to vote for Laura. And that's where, Superior, Hammond, wherever, when people show up, when Democrats show up, when we have conversations centering the people that we're talking to, we have a chance.
So I want to talk. I want to segue into the campaign, but we have only 6 minutes right now, and so I want to at least talk about and touch on, because we've talked to Representative Christina Shelton about this part before, but can't get enough press. And so one of the big things you're working on right now is securing healthy school meals for all, because it was something that was introduced during the pandemic and it was wildly popular and very successful. And so talk a little bit more about what we need to do to secure feeding our kids at school.
So feeding our kids, feeding our future, investing in our kids right now and their health, and their well-being. There's a way to do it. And here's the thing, we did it. Right?
Mhm.
We were able to feed all kids during the pandemic, and those federal waivers helped schools and families and our communities so much. And then come June, the waivers were lifted, and we're back to classifying kids based on income and on when they can receive a meal, re-stigmatizing and lunch shaming for folks who have lunch debt. I want folks to know that a healthy school meal is just important as a textbook or a pencil. It is the way when kids are full, when they are ready to learn, they're less likely to have behavioral challenges, and there's ways to build community around school meals. You talk about the concept of farm to school, and right now we have massive supply chain shortages. What an opportunity this could be to really reinvigorate the economic side of this and build new partnerships with local food companies and local farmers and people who are investing in food. We should have every single kid in the state of Wisconsin get Wisconsin milk. That is not the case right now. And I think as well as complicated as this issue is we need, federal action, state action, and local action. The fact that we were able to feed all kids in schools and now we're taking that away is unacceptable. And so with the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition, we really are, focusing on the health of our kids, as well as understanding in order to do this, we have to reevaluate the value of our food service workers. And when we have worker justice and higher wages for our food service workers, and we take away that stigma about who is serving our kids, knowing that the people who are serving our kids, who are most likely women and Black and brown women, are closest to our kids as well. They're helping to share a meal with them. And so if we invested in them and made this a career, the likelihood that they'll be able to have less turnover and build stronger relationship with our kids and make sure our kids feel safe and happy and want to continue to learn, all of that can be done through an investment in our school meal system. And I think, again, the biggest point I want to hit home here is that we were able to do this. We had the political will and courage. Yes, it took a pandemic, but we could feed all kids. And right now, it's an upheaval of administrative hurdles with kids having to fill out complicated applications with Social Security numbers. All of this should not be what we burden our administrators and our families with. We should be feeding all kids. It should be a bipartisan agreement. And I think next session, Rep. Shelton and I, the first thing we're going to do is reintroduce the Healthy School Meals for All bill.
I'm guessing it's not bipartisan at the moment.
Not a single Republican signed on last session.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to take another break. And Francesca Hong will still be here when we come back because we're going to talk about looking forward and the campaigns that she's been helping out on and the stories and conversations she's having. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school system, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slacker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci for Busted Pencils Radio. Each week they take on the challenges and issues facing our schools, teachers, and communities. Busted Pencils, Tuesdays at 7, right here on 92.7.
My fine guest, Maggie Dawn, attorney at law. I thought that
Should
the
we try
laws
to get
of
a
the United
Culver's
States
Critter
were
Burger to eat on air? So should we try to get a Culver's Critter Burger to eat on air? Because supposedly it's returning this month. No? You know how to eat it with me? Fred, have you had a Culver's Critter Burger? No? I have not had one either. They sold out so quickly last time.
To be honest.
Also because Culver's isn't the only one who does this. I feel like there's more burgers joints that do. But I just saw that it's coming back, and so just kitschy things we can do on the radio.
Inside flooded and damaged homes.
I mean, I'm happy to come on and have a discussion about the Culver's
We have a difficult time.
I could talk a full hour.
Because the property.
We talk a whole. I know we could. That's how we could finish the last segment. We can talk about your tater tot perfectionism. your very strong stance on tater tots.
I am with.
Okay, that's where we'll end the show for the last 10 minutes. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll talk about Senate and Assembly races.
It sickens me to say that people are looting at a time like this. But again, I wanted to get the message out clear. I mean, we're a law and order state.
Elsewhere, the hurricane's remnants, now a nor'easter, weren't done with the U.S. Heavy rain fell from Philadelphia to Boston, though not enough to cause any flooding. I'm Ed Donahue.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell at the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. During the first day of jury selection in Waukesha County, Darrell Brooks Jr. continually interrupted proceedings. Brooks Jr. is representing himself after withdrawing a plea of insanity last month and then being allowed to waive his right to an attorney based on 4 different psychological evaluations, stating he wants to represent himself as, quote, a sovereign citizen. Brooks Jr. is facing 77 charges, including 6 homicide charges surrounding the Waukesha Christmas Parade last year. Brooks Jr. interrupted the jury selection numerous times Monday and was removed twice to an adjacent courtroom where he could appear by video, but the camera was muted a majority of the time. Waukesha County Circuit Court Judge Jennifer Darrow said if Brooks Jr. continues to be disruptive, she could appoint an attorney to the case. By the end of the day, only 41 potential jurors had been interviewed. The selection will now continue into Thursday, so all 315 potential jurors can be interviewed. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest this hour is Francesca Hong, who is the Assembly Representative for District 76, and that is in Madison. And because of our even more gerrymandered maps than we had for the last 10 years, at least for the time being, for the next 10 years, our maps are still very safe. Many safe districts. Yours being one of them. Madison, obviously, is a big blue dot. Milwaukee is another big blue dot. And there is very few competitive districts, either on the Senate side or the Assembly side. And so a different person than you might just sail into their next term knowing that you didn't have anyone who primaried you, and that you would just be able to show up for next year. But that is not the case. You are out there doing a lot for a lot of different campaigns. And so what I think a lot of those people we've actually had on the show so far as trying to get more down ballot people who are running in purple districts where every vote's going to count. And so what has campaigning for other people been like?
It's a lot easier for me to talk about other people than myself. So that has been
funny how that works.
Yeah, and we've got so many phenomenal women running for office. And again, want to reiterate that so many Assembly Democrats and senators are doing their part to help go out and canvass for our candidates. But again, specifically the women who are running, and I want to point out two races that I am paying really close attention to and would like other people to invest in as well. And that is for folks to join the flock, because Bird is the word, with Lou Ann Bird in the 82nd, who's running against an old-timey Donovan, who really, again, I don't understand why he continues to run for office. However, she is running a strong grassroots campaign and building a coalition that is multi-generational and multi-ethnic and really having a lot of fun. And I want folks to remember that politics can be fun and joyful, and that's what's going to help us connect with people. And that's what I think of when I think of Lou Ann Bird, who also happens to have immense experience in working in her local government. So she has strong policy backgrounds, especially when it comes to championing public schools. She is one of the strongest advocates for disability rights and also caregivers and elders, and elder care as someone who is a caregiver herself. And then she will literally call me up with saying, Bird is the word, and we'll just have a conversation about her grands and my kids. That's someone I want in office. That's someone I can laugh with, but also have very serious conversations about when it comes to our lack of care infrastructure in this state. So Bird is the word, Lou Ann Bird for the 82nd. I am so excited for her, and I can't wait to see her beat Bob Donovan.
We had her on. She is a delight.
Absolutely.
Just a delight. I just want to spend time with her.
She'll be at Boone and Crockett, y'all, on the 20th, and I hope I will be there as well. And then, yeah, I think campaigning for other people, it's really, again, we talk about teamwork all the time in the caucus, and it is something that is really difficult to strengthen when everyone does have to kind of fight for scraps, right? When you're in the minority party in terms of capturing media attention, or it gets harder and harder to make sure that you've got a slice for yourself and you're seeing a bigger part of the pie. And I think when you're campaigning for others, it is teamwork in action. And the Assembly Democrats are working with our amazing staff so hard to make sure that people understand that these local candidates are who is going to help strengthen and build a stronger Democratic coalition here in our state. And so the other candidate I want to point out is the phenomenal Laura Gaspy, who's running for the 74th up in Superior. And Laura is born and raised in the Superior area. She is a fighting single mom who constantly advocates for folks who may not have opportunities to advocate for themselves. So whether it be people who are suffering from a domestic abuse or children who are in unsafe homes, I think, Laura, her entire being is around service. And she's also hella fun. and recently did a comedy show with Mary Mack up in the district. And unfortunately, there were the incidents of threats, and I think another part of campaigning with other people, I'm recognizing that in these purple areas, people who are running in redder districts in particular are facing danger a lot. I know Deb Andraka and even Sarah Rodriguez in the suburbs of Milwaukee would get threats to themselves and their families all the time. And it's happening a lot to women. And I think that the fact that the opposition is using fear as a tactic to attack candidates and attacking their families is not only cowardly, but it's un-American. And we need to continue to bring light to this issue, that it's never okay for someone who is fighting for the betterment of all communities, regardless of your party affiliation, is being threatened, and their family being threatened as well. And so that's a reality that I've seen campaigning with other candidates in tougher districts that you don't really hear about as much here, but it does happen everywhere, and it specifically is happening to women.
We're talking to Representative Francesca Hong, and it's interesting that you bring that up because it was something I flagged to talk about at some point for the show, because both saw headlines this week, both from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but also Susan Collins, and the amount of death threats that Ilhan Omar, Nancy Pelosi, that the amount of violence targeted towards them, or threats of violence targeted towards them, and that is on a very obviously national scale, but then on a very local scale here, it is the same thing. And what's shocking to me is, because I do think women get it worse, even as a not politician. And I will say I've been fairly lucky, but I know women commentators, women content creators, just being a woman who puts themselves out there often elicits very negative, ugly comments. And yet it's like in such gerrymandered districts where, the odds are really stacked against you, it just seems like women are stepping up to run. And I haven't gone down the entire Ballotpedia docket as far as everyone who's running as a challenger and not an incumbent in these districts that are more likely like multiple points ahead for Republicans. But it's predominantly women who are stepping up to say, I'll run. And, this is a very female-centric show. We're one of the very few talk radio shows in Wisconsin that have ladies at the helm. It's a very male-dominated situation. But it's just, of course, I think it makes sense to us why it's so many women, because we know women, we love women, and they get things done. But does it surprise you at all, as far as, at least on the Democratic side, how many women are the ones who step up, even knowing that the odds are stacked against them?
I think it really reinforces the fact that we are much better multitaskers than our male counterparts, and we will forever be the better multitaskers. And you cannot do this job without multitasking, as well as having a thick skin. I think it's wild that so often women are accused of being emotional or quick to react, when we have seen the absolute harm that when male politicians or men in power pout or bully, they are never called out for it. When they are emotional, it is accepted. And so the fact that while wearing so many hats and encompassing so many identities, we continue to do it with grace and poise, which is often stifling. It doesn't surprise me that women are stepping up to run, because they feel compelled to care. And they know that if we do not care about one another, we will not survive. And I think it's still hard for folks to really accept and embody that. And so women care. And it's clear in how they've stepped up to run for office. I'm not saying all women care, and all women who are running for office right now are caring of their communities. But I will say that, regardless of where you are ideologically, it is incredibly unfair that we are not allowed to be our most authentic selves, yet we still choose to do some of the most and choose to be in the most difficult roles, including running for office.
It makes me so angry. It makes me so very angry. Back in the day when I started in radio, we had obscene phone callers. That was something I could deal with firsthand, take care of it. I had a list of comebacks depending upon what disgusting thing they would say to me for any occasion. And now all of those people have become these keyboard warriors, and I don't hear any men calling out other men for this behavior, and that drives me crazy.
Oh, it is infuriating. And then they have the audacity to be like, well, how can we help? The fact that we have to insert and be and exert more emotional labor to then direct and give direct men on what they can do to be more supportive of women and our allies is in itself absurd. And although the Democratic caucus right now is majority women, when I said my tenure so far has been absurd in the legislature, I will say those in power right now are currently men. And it's concerning that they don't see the threats that come to women, especially women in power, as a threat to them too.
Well, I might get in trouble for saying this, but it's such a stark difference when you look at the breakdown of the Wisconsin legislature, and except for a couple women, it is all mediocre looking white guys and like somewhere between middle-aged and old, and it's just like looking at their pictures is like sheesh. And
mediocre is an overstatement.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to I'm trying to have smarter humor than attacking what people look like, no matter what or how much they potentially deserve it. I got in trouble when I made fun of Trieg's balding mullet, and so I've stopped talking about that. And so, anyways, but look at what happened in the Republican primary for governor. The misogyny runs so deep on that side that and I don't agree with her on almost anything, but no one was working harder in that than Rebecca Clayfish. She worked for almost 4 years. As soon as Governor Evers took office, she was running for governor, and she was so prepared. She worked so hard, and yet that wasn't enough. And people on that side of the party at the last minute threw up a man who I don't think he has any business running for governor. I don't think, from what I can see, I don't think he understands how the government works. I think he thinks it's a top-down military business thing, and it's not. And yet they were more comfortable with him than with a woman. And it's so plain.
Yeah, that they can be as sexist as they are racist. But that is the majority of people who are Trump Republicans in that party. And it is what fuels them. It is what they think gives them power. And it is what perpetuates their hateful rhetoric. And I think Clayfish felt that. And I think she recognized it.
And we'll see. I mean, she's young enough that it'll be interesting to see if she comes back and runs for something else. But it was hard for me to imagine, to feel that kind of targeted or lack of support, despite carrying the party line as hard as she does, and still coming up and saying, still a Republican, still running under this banner. But I don't know. The ideologues will be ideologuing. And so, all right, we're going to take our last break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about something a little lighter, a specific food product that Francesca Hong has very strong feelings about. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Mental health challenges impact us all in some way. Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services is working hard to meet these challenges, ushering a new model of mental health care, redesigned with you in mind. This community-based system meets people where they're at, with culturally competent services, better access, and no wrong doors to begin the journey. Milwaukee County Behavioral Health Services, here for you, close to home. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health emergency, contact 414-257-7222.
The real estate market in Dane County and surrounding areas has been a bit of a hot mess this year. Listings are being picked off above asking prices and without the home inspection contingencies. I'm Todd Osborne, owner of Orion Inspections, and even if I weren't a home inspector, I'd still cringe a little if any of my friends or family tried to buy a home without an inspection. Let's take a good hard look at that house before you sign. Want to know more? I'm here to help. OrionInspections.com. That's Orion, like the constellation, inspections.com.
If you're looking to improve your home, you need to check out Tundraland in Waukesha. Redesign your bathroom with showers you'll want to sing in. Tundraland offers one-day installation, flexible financing, jacuzzi bath remodel, shower and bath systems, customizable options, and they have employee installers. If you mention WAUK 540 AM or 101 FM The Shaw, you can get a $500 gift card for your next project, which is great because they also do decks and cabinet refacing. Visit the showroom at 1741 Dolphin Drive in Waukesha and mention The Shaw sent you.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon with highs around 70. Southwest winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy again tonight. Lows level off around 45. High temperatures reach up to 70. Tomorrow, overcast. Low 60s Thursday with a chance for scattered showers. Upper 40s, partly cloudy skies Friday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
Gonna make a tater tot hot dish. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Francesca Hogg is our guest, and she's very impressed that Jane Mettner found Fred, I know you're very busy these days, so you don't have a lot of time to listen to a 3-hour radio show. But the songs that Jane finds to as our bumper music, and how topical they are, and how random they are, really sparks so much joy in my day every day.
I am so impressed right now. I mean, Jen, I've been a fan, but like that's some next level.
It's some next level.
You were the one who inspired me, Fran, with your love of tater tots, and all I need is one thing like that, and I will find it, man. It's my mission.
All right, well, so we are going to talk about tater tots, but quickly, I know you want to talk quickly because you're doing a lot for Mandela Barnes' campaign as well.
Yeah, I wanted to uplift that a video was unearthed today of Ron Johnson at the Rotary Club downplaying and saying calling January 6th an insurrection was inaccurate. And I want to make sure folks know that like this has been Ron Johnson's position on this for well over a year now, but to see it on video hits different. And so it is beyond dangerous to have him, one, as a senator, and two, representing Wisconsin. I think the threat to democracy is Ron Johnson as a senator, and as Mandela Barnes is continuing his Ron on Roe campaign, and really being an ally in talking about abortion access, because we really don't have enough, going back to when we were talking about, men standing up for women and calling things out. We do need more men to talk about abortion in a very personal and a very real way. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Mandela is that he is sharing the story with his mom about her abortion, and he is talking about how this is for everyone. And regardless of where you are on the issue, and there are many different ways to stand on it, I guess, someone you love will need an abortion someday. And he is an embodiment of that. And I think it's really important to know that we as Wisconsinites deserve someone who shares our values and is willing to share those difficult stories and lived experiences so that we can feel more connected to our politicians.
We actually have the clip.
This is Ron Johnson from earlier today.
Would you have made those exact comments if the protesters had been supporting Black Lives Matter movement or seeking to disrupt the Senate vote to quit President Trump?
Well, first of all, there weren't thousands of armed insurrections. I asked the question of the FBI agent at a hearing on this and said, how many firearms were confiscated either in the Capitol or on Capitol grounds? I don't know the answer. For all I know, it's going to be 1,000. No, zero. Now, the summer protesters did teach us all how you can use flagpoles, that kind of stuff, as weapons. But to call what happened on January 6th an armed insurrection, I just think is not accurate. You saw the pictures inside the Capitol. I saw them that day. The armed insurrectionists stayed within the rope lines in the rotunda.
Reflecting their response.
They stayed in the rope lines at the rotunda.
He is delusional. He is a liar, and he has absolutely no business representing anyone, let alone Wisconsinites. And the fact that I got death threats for calling him delusional scum, and he is literally out here downplaying a time where lives were lost, where officers died, and people's lives were threatened, and folks are.
Oh, did we lose you for a second? Oh, no, we got you back. I agree. I have to say, I agree that the fact that he's still on this train of downplaying it when we all have seen the pictures and we've heard the testimony is something. But we only have 4 minutes left in the show. And so I do want to end on a higher note, because one of the things that I do appreciate about Francesca Hong is that she is a foodie. She owns a restaurant, and she has very strong feelings about tater tots and how they should be presented. Take it away.
I love tater tots. I've loved tater tots since the first time I've had them in school. I've loved them on hot dish. I will take tater tots over what one time I saw hot dog buns on top of a hot dish as opposed to tater tots, which that's a whole nother thing. So I don't want people messing with tater tots. It should be a russet potato, low seasoning. Arida does a great job. And when chefs in particular try to recreate a tater tot, it is highly offensive to me. It's one of the few things that I enjoy with just straight up ketchup. If you're out here making your own ketchup and your own tater tots and something comes out soggy, something comes out spicy, this is one of those truly amazing things when I see people mess with this and fail so miserably and then go out there and call themselves a gastropub or some whack thing like that. Tater tots are beautiful on their own, should be served straight up. Ketchup, maybe, that's it. And I don't want to see anything else.
Only Francesca Hong could bring the same passion to Ron Johnson denying how intense the January 6th was that she does to being a tater tot purist. This is how you live your life, passionately.
Yeah, I mean, if folks want to check out my last tweet on who I think Ron Johnson is, there's an expletive I use, but I think that when it comes to tater tots, there are certain, especially when they can go from frozen to fry, like that's their beauty. It's the science of going from frozen to fry. And when I see that science imbalance, when I see folks like stacking them up I just know they're called tots for a reason. You serve them up with ketchup. Anything else should be in the garbage.
Air fryer, is that an issue, Fran? Because I do air fry my tots.
That's fine. I think for me, it's like folks who season them. Like I've seen ranch seasoning go into tater tots. It's folks, they're really difficult to make from scratch, right? And because you have to you have to dry out the potatoes fully. And so ketchup and tater tots are two things that I don't need to see chefs trying to recreate. Like the only memory that's going to evoke for me is one of pure hatred. And when I learned that Ron Johnson was, a delusional election denying scumbag.
Mic drop. And on that note, Francesca Hogg, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Is there anything or anywhere you would like to direct our audience to go check out, or any websites or social media?
Yeah, please check out the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition. It's healthyschoolmealsforall.wi.org, healthyschoolmealsforall.wi.org. Our Healthy School Meals Coalition is growing strong, over 75 members, everyone from Wisconsin churches to school boards up in northern and central Wisconsin. We are absolutely hell-bent on making sure our kids are fed.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Good luck on the campaign trail. I will see you soon, probably at Luann Bird's event. And that'll do it for today. We got 10 seconds left. This is As Goes Wisconsin. See you tomorrow.
Caviar and truffles, I tasted saffron and fugu too. But nothing beats a tater tot hot dish, except for maybe a tater tot stew.
Hey there, my name is Kurt Bankstad and I own the Monaco Brewing